Chapter 393. Meng Yingying received news from southern Xia that the antidote had already begun production. The antidote that Chu Tian had researched, not only did it have a low cost, it also had common materials. Miracle Commerce had the resources in southern Xia, so it didn't take much effort to make it. Perhaps large amounts of antidote would be sent over soon. What should we prepare now? Before the antidote is sent over, we don't have the conditions to fight. We need to avoid being attacked by the marauders in the next few days, and we also need to find out where the marauders are hiding. Chu Tian rubbed his chin as he thought about it. Let's set a time and find the trolls to have a heart-to-heart talk. What did you say? Meng Yingying's beautiful eyes instantly popped out. Is there a problem with your head? I don't have anything to talk to them about. Do you think they will come? They will definitely come, Chu Tian said with a confident face. Isn't this the result they want to see? Chu Tian is right. At this time, a dignified and beautiful woman walked in. The marauders' current actions are just to create panic and surrender without a fight. Our negotiation request is exactly what they want. This method can stall for a few days and we can lure the snake out of its hole. We can find the marauders' hiding place, killing two birds with one stone. So it's like this. Meng Yingying felt this was a bit reasonable. But how do we contact the other side? The marauders must have left people in the forest to observe our reaction. We'll write down the time and place of our meeting in the forest. They will definitely come. The young miss is exceptionally smart, not like a silly girl. Who's a silly girl? Meng Yingying was about to explode. Chu Tian laughed. I'll leave this matter to the young miss. Meng Qingwu did things swiftly and decisively, immediately personally writing an essay. She sincerely asked the marauders to stop killing and invited them to meet in a basin outside Oldman Canyon in 3 days. Meng Qingwu was afraid that the trolls wouldn't understand, so she was very considerate and wrote them in 3 common languages in the forest. Then, she made more than 100 copies of these invitations and had people secretly paste them in conspicuous places in the forest. This move was indeed effective. Oldman's small town was not attacked again. If he wasn't wrong, the moment the raiders saw the invitation, they would immediately drink and celebrate their easy harvest. Then they would rest and recharge themselves for the negotiation in 3 days. In these few days, a large amount of antidotes were transported to the town through the space warehouse. Chu Tian was not idle. He made some array flags to arrange a special source energy array. This source energy array's function was very simple. It was just to disrupt and weaken sound waves. The trolls were good at taming bat beasts. The bat beasts were not just mounts for the marauders, they were also the eyes of the marauders. With a strong ultrasonic detection ability, it was hard for anything to escape the trolls' eyes. But it was because of this that the trolls were very reliant on the bat beast's detection abilities. If the bat beast's detection abilities weren't good, the trolls would be caught off guard. 3 days quickly passed. Meng Qingwu immediately found a large group of suspicious figures on the monitor in the command room. When she zoomed in, she revealed a look of joy. There were over 1,000 marauders, flying out of a cave several hundred kilometers away. They were quickly heading in the direction of Oldman's small town. That's right. This must be the marauders' stronghold. Meng Qingwu immediately deployed. First Heaven's Punishment, immediately head to the target area. Wait for orders and prepare to attack. First Heaven's Punishment, received. A large airship slowly moved tens of thousands of meters in the air. This is bad, this is bad. Before long, a werewolf ran into the town in a panic. A large group of marauders is coming. When the townspeople heard this, they were all shocked. Could it be the marauders were going to launch an attack? Chu Tian appeared to calm everyone. Everyone, there is no need to panic. This is just a small trap we set up. The marauders' stronghold has been locked in and the Oldman small town army has been mobilized. We will take them down in a single strike and our name will shake the forest. The locals revealed a look of hesitation. Miracle Commerce had locked in on the marauders' stronghold this quickly? They clearly didn't do anything these past few days. Could there be a problem? The Oldman small town army had already been mobilized. Miracle Commerce's 6,000 berserkers were all mobilized, with 800 storm rifles and over 200 source energy cannons. The rest were all equipped with source energy submachine guns, and each person had a source energy grenade hanging on them. It looked like they were going to fight a decisive battle. Vivian was leading the 1,000 elven unicorn archers to participate in the battle. If the elves were participating, what reason did they have to not believe it? They immediately returned to their tribes and had the warriors of their tribes prepare for battle. Actually, for miracle commerce, the small town's army was more than enough. The reason why they pulled the locals this time was mainly to show them miracle commerce's strength. The tens of thousands of allied soldiers set off. Chu Tian brought several hundred people with him, heading to the meeting place with the trolls. When Chu Tian arrived, several hundred marauders had already been waiting for a long time. The heavens, I had seen over 1,000 troll cavalry on the scouting ship, but there were only several hundred in front of them. The other marauders had scattered to scout. These marauders were not brainless and were worried that Oldman's small town would ambush them in the name of negotiating. A burly troll marauder walked out. He was more than 2 meters tall, and his upper body was half naked. His muscles looked like they were carved out of stone, and his body was covered in strange totems. He held a long black spear in each hand, and suddenly thrust it deep into the ground. A powerful aura spread out from Min Man, making everyone feel a sense of oppression. Chu Tian did not bring Vivian with him. Therefore, the small town did not have a single true spirit cultivator. When the troll marauders saw Oldman's small town's lineup, they couldn't help looking down on them. But what kind of experts could a trivial small town have? This kind of lineup and this kind of reaction was normal. Ha ha ha. The troll leader gave a few sinister laughs. I thought you didn't dare come. Chu Tian swaggered in front of the marauders. I have always kept my word, so since I invited everyone, how could I not come? You do have a bit of courage. The troll leader pulled out a jet black spear and his green eyes stared right at them. Don't waste words, we only kill people who don't know what's good for them. Since you're tactful, I'll spare your lives, but you must agree to our request. Chu Tian calmly asked, I'd like to hear the details. First, hand over all the source stones and resources you have. Second, pay tribute to us from now on. 90% of your source stones and resources will be given to us. Third. The troll leader looked over Nangong Yun, Meng Yingying, and the others behind Chu Tian with an obscene gaze. These human women aren't bad, they'll be responsible for serving us from now on. This troll leader's tone was high and mighty, as if it was a great honor for Chu Tian to do these things. Chu Tian gave a slight nod. Just these? The humans being this calm made the marauders a bit surprised. What did this fellow mean? Was this not enough? The troll leader nodded. Source stones, resources, and women, these are all ours. We are not interested in your lives, so you should be thankful for our benevolence. Now obediently hand over the things we offer. Third leader, I haven't done anything to a human woman before. I want to go first with that red-haired woman, don't steal her from me. The troll marauders already saw these people as things in the bag, even starting to fight for the right to go first. The troll race had a tyrannical nature and their sense of beauty was similar to the mainstream of the continent, therefore human beauties were very attractive to them. Since your excellency has made this many requests, shouldn't this one also make one? You still have requests. Chu Tian reached out to grab the sword hilt on his back and slowly pulled out the ice mirror like netherworld sword. With a gentle wave of the sword, he pointed it at the troll leader. It's very simple, I only have a single request, which is to borrow your head to play with for 2 days. This small request, I hope you won't refuse? The marauders were stunned for a few seconds before breaking out in laughter. Was this human joking? He dared to say this kind of thing with his awakened soul realm cultivation. The marauders' third leader was a true soul realm expert. The marauders could be arrogant in the forest for so many years, it was not without reason. In this large bandit organization, there were many experts like clouds. A human that hadn't even grown a hair yet actually dared to fight with the marauder leader? The troll leader's eyebrows came together and his eyes filled with anger from being teased. Do you know what price you'll pay for this? Pay your head. Nangong Yun was filled with rage when she saw the troll. She immediately angrily roared out, This old lady will kill you first. Nangong Yun's arms transformed into a pair of flaming wings, and with a fierce flap, she instantly soared into the sky like a giant bird. She first circled in the air, and after increasing her speed to the extreme, she pounced towards her opponent like a burning moth. Seeking death. The troll's black spear was thrown out like a black thunderbolt. The flames on Nangong Yun's body were instantly torn apart and the fierce black energy passed through her body. Even the Starlight Immortal body could not block this kind of fierce attack. Meng Yingying was shocked. Big sister Nangong. Nangong Yun crashed through several trees and was embedded in a giant rock. The flames on her body exploded and turned her surroundings into a sea of flames. The rocks around her were burned to the ground. Everyone's faces fell. Such a strong strength. Even a peak 9th awakened soul layer cultivator with a defensive cultivation technique would find it hard to block this kind of attack. Nangong Yun had just reached the peak 8th awakened soul layer. Large amounts of flames came out of the crack in the mountain and Nangong Yun stepped out of the lava. What was hard to believe was that she was not injured at all. The troll was a bit stunned. That attack should have passed through her body. Did this fellow have an immortal body? Nangong Yun's face was a bit pale and it was clear she had consumed quite a bit of spirit energy. Was this the large difference between the awakened soul realm and the true spirit realm? As expected, even a divine cultivation technique could not make up for it. Nangong, move aside. Chu Tian raised his sword as he walked forward. This fellow is mine. Chapter 394. Chu Tian's subordinates all had their own duties. Meng Qingwu was in charge of the company, Meng Yingying was in charge of supporting the various departments, and Nangong Yun was the one with the strongest fighting ability in the original group, so she became the most important battle talent. Although she was only in the peak 8th awakened soul layer, she could still fight against a peak 9th awakened soul layer cultivator. But for this kind of battle talent, although it wasn't hard to jump levels, it wasn't easy to jump levels. The difference of a single realm was like the distance between heaven and earth. An awakened soul cultivator fighting a body refinement cultivator and a true spirit cultivator fighting an awakened soul cultivator, there was no suspense at all. There was not a single true spirit cultivator in Oldman's small town, so how could the marauders place them in their eyes? This human brat really didn't know what was good for him. How could he be this arrogant? He was simply seeking death. You're seeking death. The marauder leader gave a sinister laugh. What reason do I have to not help you? The two of them faced each other. The surging killing intent and pressure collided violently in the surrounding space, causing the others to involuntarily take a few steps back. Chu Tian's sword slightly trembled, just like a wild beast that couldn't wait to attack. This was Chu Tian's first time fighting a true spirit realm expert. Although Chu Tian was very confident, Chu Tian didn't know how strong he could be with his current strength. The marauder leader made a move first. A black spear turned into a black thunderbolt as it shot out at Chu Tian's chest. He wanted to pierce through Chu Tian's body just like how he pierced through Nangong Yun. But this time it was even more fierce. He wanted to personally shatter his organs and shatter his heart. He didn't believe it. Could there be a person who could still live after their heart was shattered? He wanted to let this stupid human know what kind of ending an ant facing a fierce tiger would face. The Netherworld sword released a beautiful and eye-catching sword glow. Ding. The sword and spear tip collided. It was like a needle against an awn. The swift and fierce sword chi and spear radiance scattered in all directions like broken water droplets. The entire grassland was torn off, and the surrounding forest seemed to have experienced a storm. It was instantly blown to the side, and countless branches were torn to shreds. Whether it was Oldman's small town or the marauders, when they felt this powerful collision, they couldn't help moving back a bit. Another explosion sounded. Chu Tian and the marauder leader each retreated 5 or 6 zhang. Chu Tian's face was still as calm as still water, and there was no change in his expression. He was just silently evaluating the power of his sword. The marauder leader's expression changed dramatically. He never thought that his opponent would be able to block his attack without dodging. What a powerful sword chi! The moment the marauder leader clashed with his opponent, a sinister, cunning, and vicious energy flowed through the spear and into his body. Even though the Marauder leader was strong, he didn't have enough time to defend himself, so he suffered quite a bit. A human actually withstood a blow from the third leader? This wasn't a dream, right? The third leader was a true spirit cultivator. The Oldman small town side were filled with shock compared to the troll. The mayor was actually this strong. It seemed like they had underestimated this human too much. So it's like this. You're a sword cultivator and you've cultivated at least a perfection realm sword art. That's why you can release such a strong sword chi. The Marauder leader's face turned dark for a few seconds before he suddenly thought of something. But no matter how strong your sword art is, how many attacks can an awakened soul cultivator's spirit energy withstand? Chu Tian laughed. You can give it a try. The Marauder leader was once again enraged by Chu Tian's relaxed and frivolous attitude. Damn, he was clearly this weak. But he dared to be this arrogant. Since it's like this, I'll let him see my true strength. The Marauder chief's spirit energy condensed into the shape of a three-headed snake. Each head of this three-headed snake had a different color: red, green, and purple. 3 different energies revolved around the giant demon. The third leader is using his source spirit. This 3-headed monster snake source spirit is famous for its strength. Let's see how this brat will deal with it this time. Chu Tian's eyes slightly narrowed. A rare multi-attributed source spirit? This kind of source spirit could have multi-attributed battle energy, so it was harder to deal with than normal cultivators. The black spears returned to his hands like 2 black pythons. The moment the Marauder leader grabbed the 2 black spears, his aura increased by at least 10 times. The 3 snake source spirits actually split apart, with one coiling around his left hand, one coiling around his right hand, and the last one coming out of his head. It turned into a strong and corrosive poison mist that charged at Chu Tian. Poison-attributed source spirit? Chu Tian turned into a sword glow to escape. Wanna run? How could it be that easy? The Marauder leader gave a few fiendish laughs. His legs stepped off the ground and he teleported forward, locking onto Chu Tian who was hiding. Die. The 2 black spears turned into demonic snakes that attacked Chu Tian. The 2 demonic snakes that coiled around his body released their power. One of them made people feel numb and the other made them feel weak. The 2 powers intertwined with each other on Chu Tian's body, making Chu Tian feel like the air around him had turned into cement. Each of his movements felt like they were being slowed by 1,000 pounds. Such a strange source spirit's power. Each of the Marauder leader's attacks had a negative effect, weakening the other side's ability to resist. Even a true spirit cultivator of the same level would be hit if they were caught off guard, not to mention an awakened soul cultivator. Awakened soul cultivators could not resist the numbness and weakness of the demonic snakes at all. Most awakened soul cultivators would lose their ability to resist when they attacked. Sword. The demon god's sword source spirit soared into the sky. Chu Tian borrowed the power of the demon god's sword to scatter the energy enveloping him, giving him a short moment to catch his breath. The netherworld sword merged with the demon god's sword's destructive power and the blue and white sword glow turned purple and black. Its strength increased by at least 1-fold and its destructive power increased by 10 times. Netherworld ghost slash. Chu Tian did not hesitate for half a second as he slashed out with his sword. The burning netherworld sword slammed into the 2 demonic snakes and the intense flames and destructive energy completely disintegrated the demonic snakes. With an explosion sound, both sides were sent flying again. Were they evenly matched again? Both sides released their source spirits. Chu Tian had scattered the Marauder leader's source spirit with a single slash. From this point, the result of this exchange was that Chu Tian had the upper hand. The Marauder leader's face was filled with shock and anger, even flying into a rage. Damn, I want to see how long you can last. This time the Marauder leader had experienced Chu Tian's strength. This fellow was not using tricks, rather he was meeting force with force, meeting force with force. Without any tricks, with his peak 9th awakened soul layer cultivation, he was able to fight against someone in the first true spirit layer. But the Marauder leader was not panicked. Because even if the other side was heaven-defying, He was still an awakened soul cultivator. These two attacks had consumed less than 1% of a true spirit cultivator's energy, but it had consumed at least 10% of an awakened soul cultivator's energy. How long could he last like this? I thought you were strong. Chu Tian revealed a look of disappointment as he shook his head with a sigh. In the end, you only have this bit of skill? This kind of battle without any challenge is not fun at all. I don't want to play anymore. I'll take care of you with this move. Contempt. Naked contempt. It was as if killing him was as easy as eating a bun. Overestimating yourself. The Marauder leader released an even stronger spirit energy than before. I'll let you have a taste of the giant demon clan's inherited secret technique. The Marauder leader was completely enraged. He released a special secret technique and his body was instantly covered in spirit energy, turning into a three-headed demonic snake. An ancient and cruel aura surrounded him. The giant demon released his source spirit to its peak, increasing the effect of his source spirit by 10 times. Flame Demon Transformation. The moment the Marauder leader released the secret technique, Chu Tian's body began to burn. The raging flames turned him into a fierce and terrifying flame demon. In an instant, he just disappeared all of a sudden. Chu Tian charged forward with a speed and strength several times faster than before. The Marauder leader barely locked onto Chu Tian and immediately used a strong slowing and cursing power on Chu Tian's body. Even for a true spirit cultivator, this power was enough to make them unable to move. He did not believe that Chu Tian could break it. As expected, Chu Tian was forced to stop. His body was burning as he stood in the air, but he could not move forward at all. The chance was here. Immediately kill him. The Marauder leader roared out as he prepared to attack. He never would have thought that the flames on Chu Tian's body would suddenly grow stronger. A flame separated from his body and turned into an identical flame demon that also held a burning sword in its hand. This flaming demon then turned into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8. The Marauder leader was instantly surrounded by 8 flame demons in the flame demon transformation state. This is... The Marauder leader was filled with fear. This was not an illusion. Each flame demon had gathered a strong power and he couldn't even tell which one was the main body. Netherworld clone slash. The 8 figures disappeared at the same time. Countless sword glows formed a giant net that instantly divided the Marauder leader's body. With an unstoppable momentum, the Marauder was torn to pieces. Instant kill. Instant kill. The Marauder leader did not have any room to resist at all. The Netherworld clone slash was the Netherworld Flame Sword's Perfection Realm's final killing move. It allowed Chu Tian to instantly create clones, with each clone having 100% of the main body's full strength slash. This was equal to duplicating his strength by several times and releasing it all at once. Adding in the flame demon transformation, even a true spirit expert could not block it. The third leader is dead? The other Marauders were stunned. They never would have thought that it would be like this even in their dreams. After Chu Tian killed a true spirit cultivator, he had consumed quite a bit of energy. He immediately took several pills to replenish himself and then gave an order, "Kill them all." The trolls did not have time to react. The source energy weapons were raised and the wild storm of source energy bullets instantly filled the forest. The trolls could not fight back against this dense and terrifying attack at all. When they experienced the might of the flame demon transformation, they finally realized Oldman's small town's true strength. It was already too late. These fellows were destined to die here. Chu Tian said, "The Marauders will quickly react. We have to destroy their stronghold before they escape and kill these locusts." When they saw the strength of Chu Tian and his army, the Oldman small town people did not hesitate at all. Chapter 395. Chu Tian took care of this group of marauders and did not stay any longer. He immediately brought Nangong, Yingying, and the others to meet up with the young miss. This place was less than 50 miles away from the marauders' temporary base. Meng Qingwu led the small town's army with a total of 30,000 people, moving forward through the forest. They carefully hid themselves in the forest, preparing to attack. Elder sister, we're done. Meng Yingying ran over to meet with Meng Qingwu. Her face was filled with joy as she said to her elder sister in a small voice, Chu Tian has killed a leader, but there are some marauders that have been caught. Perhaps they have already brought the news back. If we don't attack now, perhaps the marauders will run away. Our reinforcements haven't arrived yet. Nangong Yingying found that the ambush in the forest was all the small town's army. Didn't the local tribes say that they would send their elites to help? There are over 70 to 80,000 marauders and they are all elites with decent battle strength. They even have giant bats as flying mounts. Can we beat them with just this bit of people? There's no time to wait for them. Meng Qingwu was not surprised. These locals were clearly suspicious of miracle commerce. Although they said they would send several tens of thousands of warriors, their movements were actually slow. It was clear they didn't want to be the first to attack, so they were just watching from a distance. If their attack failed, they would definitely turn around and run. They would not risk offending the marauders to help miracle commerce. Of course, if their attack succeeded, perhaps they would come and help. No matter what. Chu Tian didn't care at all. If he really relied on these fellows, he wouldn't be able to fight this battle. This battle was not as simple as chasing away a group of bandits for miracle commerce. It was also a chance for miracle commerce to show off their strength. It was a good chance to make an example of them. There were countless bandits like the marauders in the forest. If they chased away a group, another group would come, never ending. Only by fighting a beautiful battle and using a thunderous method to destroy the other side would they be able to deter the locals and the bandits in the forest, preventing something like this from happening again. Miracle Commerce did not just want to show off to their enemies and potential enemies, they also wanted to show off their muscles to their allies and potential allies. In the forest of chaos, strength was everything. Whoever's fist was harder had the right to speak. Miracle Commerce had enough shocking power. Who wouldn't be convinced by Miracle Commerce? Miracle Commerce only had a small piece of land on the outskirts of the forest and didn't touch the power of the giants. The forest giants didn't need to provoke Miracle Commerce and no one dared to touch Miracle Commerce here. This was the only way they could develop steadily. Whether it's a performance or a demonstration, this battle has to be fought beautifully. Chu Tian still wanted to confirm before launching an attack. What are your preparations? We can now confirm that the enemy is hiding in the cave ahead. The Heaven's Punishment has arrived at the best attacking position at an altitude of 5,000 meters and is on standby. Meng Qingwu added, the interference circle you arranged is already working. We won't be easily discovered if we hide in the forest. In that case, let's begin. Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. Let the elves be in charge of supporting from the rear. The rest of the troops will directly attack. After all, the elves had not truly joined the town. Chu Tian did not want a few elves to die in battle and then those fellows would find trouble for them. The army of tens of thousands moved through the dense forest, stopping several miles away from the mountain they were hiding in. There were marauders riding bats above them, so this was clearly their range. The marauders didn't know that Miracle Commerce could block the bat beast's ultrasonic waves, but several tens of thousands of people was not a small number. If they were too close, there was a large risk of being exposed. It's fine to prepare here. Chu Tian gave a signal to Meng Qingwu. Begin. The berserkers will advance first and the others will climb down. The 6,000 barbarian berserkers took out their source energy weapons and charged into the forest. Meng Qingwu took out a communication device and connected to the airship above them. Heaven's Punishment. This is Meng Qingwu. Confirm the target and begin the attack. I repeat, begin the attack. Heaven's Punishment received. A low and deep voice came from the communication device. The forest army felt this was strange. They didn't know what Chu Tian was doing and why he wanted them to lie down in the forest. However, they didn't dare disobey Chu Tian's orders, so they could only obediently lie down on the ground. The Heaven's Punishment airship was a large airship and the surface was covered in reflective mirrors. These mirrors were not normal mirrors, but rather image transfer mirrors. Not only could they display various images, they could also display images from one side to the other, creating a transparent front and back state. Even if one observed it from a close distance, they could only see a transparent outline moving. If one observed it from a distance, it was hard to see with the naked eye. This was an airship made with current technology. It could be considered a ghost floating in the air. Target locked. Height is around 5,000 meters. Normal wind speed, normal environment. Activate 100 heavy high-altitude bombs. The bottom cabin of the Miracle airship opened to reveal a bomb bay. There were meter-long bombs inserted into it like rows of black treasured swords. These bombs were completely black and there were large amounts of runes engraved on them. One could vaguely see that each bomb contained highly compressed honeycomb crystal oil bombs. The power of this bomb was equivalent to 100 source energy grenades. This wave of bombs was equivalent to 10,000 source energy grenades exploding at the same time. Activate. These long sword-like heavy bombs were activated and the runes on their surface lit up. They seemed to be affected by some kind of force and with a PU sound, they left the airship's bomb bay. They fell to the ground like meteors. This kind of speed was very fast. This was the speed at which they naturally fell. Because there were gravity runes on the surface of each bomb, as long as the runes were activated, the weight of the bomb would increase by several dozen times, so each bomb would be incomparably heavy. Being affected by the air resistance, it would increase the speed of the bomb, allowing it to fall without being affected by the wind. Over 100 bombs falling from the sky was actually very inconspicuous, just like 100 small stones falling onto a mountain. However, when these inconspicuous black dots touched the mountain, the entire forest trembled and a large amount of light and heat was released. A terrifying energy cloud rose into the sky, and the entire mountain was shaken to the point that it almost shattered into pieces. The surging air currents surged forth, causing the surrounding forest to sway and tear apart. The first wave of bombs is over. The deviation is less than 5%. Adjust the position. The second wave is 500 bombs. This first wave was just testing the waters. There were over 500 bombs in the second wave and the explosive power was several times stronger than before. When they landed on the mountain and exploded, the dazzling light even covered the sun in the sky. The small town's army and the locals that were watching in the distance were all stunned by this magnificent and terrifying scene. They finally understood what it meant to collapse the mountains and crack the earth. What made them feel the most terrified was that they could not understand how this happened at all. It was like an incomparably terrifying explosion had appeared out of nowhere. The third wave of bombs. This time it was 1,000 bombs. The entire majestic mountain had been bombarded 3 times and almost half of it had collapsed. Flames covered the surrounding forest and the ground was scorched black. The shockwave spread for 10 miles and all the trees were uprooted, losing all signs of life. Even the air was incomparably hot, being completely covered in charcoal and ashes, making one's vision blurry. Heaven's Punishment's mission is complete. Currently retreating from current altitude. The Heaven's Punishment airship's weapons had all been released. Therefore they immediately retreated and were currently returning to a safe altitude. This fast and powerful attack was definitely very sudden. If they were at the center of the explosion, even a high-level true spirit cultivator would find it hard to escape unscathed. The marauders were not prepared at all and were suddenly hit by this kind of intense bombardment. Perhaps 50 to 60% of them had died, and this was already an optimistic estimate. This large group of bandits hadn't even started fighting and they didn't even know what had happened, but they had already been crippled by miracle commerce. Everyone charge! Kill all the marauders! Chu Tian took out a loudspeaker and loudly shouted, "This is the result of offending my miracle commerce." The several tens of thousands of soldiers of the Alliance saw Miracle Commerce's miraculous methods and their morale was greatly boosted. They immediately got up and picked up their weapons, charging into the sea of flames. The surviving marauders climbed over the burning mountain rocks and climbed out with great difficulty, only to see a group of berserkers in heavy armor charging at them. Those fierce source energy weapons began to fire. Pitiful cries filled the air. 6,000 berserkers, several thousand source energy weapons. Under this kind of intense firepower, how many of these heavily injured marauders could escape? This was simply a massacre. Chairman's orders. Kill them all. The Alliance searched for the marauders and killed one they found, not leaving a single one alive, showing no mercy. To the marauders, this was simply an unprecedented nightmare. They had never understood the meaning of hell so deeply before. 80,000 marauders. An entire 80,000 marauders. This was an army with high mobility and strong scouting abilities. Although they couldn't control a region, they had run amok in the forest for many years and had never been truly destroyed before. Now they had collapsed in just a few short minutes. When the marauders' leader climbed out of the ruins, he looked at the sea of flames and lava around him. His expression twisted, filled with fear and anger. What happened? What happened here? There was a spatial fluctuation in front of him. An elven girl appeared in front of him. The marauders' leader's expression slightly changed. He immediately sent out a fist, but it passed through Vivian's body and didn't hit her. The marauders' leader's cultivation was similar to Vivian's. If he used his full strength, he could break through space, but he was injured and everything happened so suddenly, so he didn't have time to use his full strength. While the marauder leader was slightly stunned, the marauder leader was stunned. Vivian waved her hand. A spatial crack that was hard to see with the naked eye passed through the marauder leader's body. The leader's pupils slightly shrank and he slowly lowered his head with a face filled with disbelief. He saw his body being cut in half and slowly separating. The cut was smooth and neat, making him feel a chill down his spine. This wasn't real. This was most likely a dream, a nightmare. Up until the moment he died, the marauder commander couldn't believe what had just happened. After all, not long ago, he was drinking and celebrating with his brothers in the cave. No one could believe that the world had turned upside down in such a short period of time. The leader is dead. It's over, the marauders are finished. The marauder leader had been killed by Vivian, the second leader had been killed by the airship, and the third leader had been killed by Chu Tian in the forest. Almost all the high-level leaders had died, so the surviving marauders naturally collapsed. How could they still dare to fight? There was no suspense in this battle, it was a pure slaughter. From now on, a famous bandit group in the forest had been eliminated. Chapter 396. The Bear Tribe, the Wolf Tribe, the Orcs, the Ogres, and the other locals of Oldman's small town. When they arrived at the battlefield, the battle was already over. The locals were all stunned. In front of them was a majestic mountain covered in green forest. At this moment, it had already been blown to pieces. All the trees had been directly evaporated. The high temperature generated in the center of the explosion had melted the stones and formed a large amount of lava. Like a spider web, the surrounding area was covered in dust and ashes. It was a charred black, and the air seemed to be boiling. This scene of devastation, how did it look like a forest? It was simply like a doomsday volcano had erupted. Of the 80,000 marauders, there were no survivors. Most of their corpses couldn't even be found. Several barbarians put the two halves of the marauder leader's corpse together and tied it to the Oldman's small town flag, sticking it in front of the locals. This famous forest bandit was now completely burnt black. His eyes were wide open as his face was filled with shock, anger, and unwillingness. Even in death, he still could not believe this was real. The marauders had even robbed the transport team of the forest giants. The marauders had even escaped from the giants without dying. This kind of clever and cunning forest bandit organization was completely annihilated in the hands of a small town. Most of the marauders did not know what had happened before they were blasted to death. Even the lucky survivors were mercilessly annihilated by miracle commerce. There was no way to resist at all. There was no way to resist at all. So clean and efficient, so ruthless and fierce. Chu Tian led his people in front of the locals. You've come at the right time, we have already finished the battle. I'll leave the matter of putting out the fire to you. The locals were all filled with fear. The most terrifying thing was not the marauders themselves, but rather the fact that they didn't know what method miracle commerce had used. How could they find the marauders' temporary stronghold so quickly, and how could they create such a large-scale attack in such a short period of time? This kind of destructive power that could instantly destroy a mountain, even a peak true spirit realm expert could not do this. Therefore, Miracle Commerce's methods were not something these natives could imagine. They could only be thankful that they did not provoke Miracle Commerce. Otherwise, the ones who would be blown to pieces would be their tribe. The natives were terrified, none of them dared to look straight at him. They could only bow and pay their respects. Chu Tian swept his gaze over these fellows and knew that these fellows had already submitted to Miracle Commerce's powerful strength. From now on, would they dare not do anything that Miracle Commerce asked them to do? Alright, I'll leave the cleanup to you guys. Also, check if there are any spoils of war left. Chu Tian had eliminated this large bandit organization as easily as if he had chopped a piece of wood. It was just a trivial matter. Let's call it a day. Yes. The Allied forces in the town began to assemble and retreat. All that was left were the natives whose faces were filled with terror and shock. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and clean up the battlefield. One of the natives shouted, and it was like they had woken up from a dream. After all, they had slowly rushed over, which had already made Chu Tian dissatisfied. If they slowly cleaned up the battlefield, what if Miracle Commerce was angry and sent a wave of attacks to their tribes? Miracle Commerce could easily locate the marauders. Then it could easily locate them. Miracle Commerce could easily destroy the marauders. Then it could easily destroy them. In the hearts of these natives, Miracle Commerce was not a simple outer forest power. Rather, it was a giant that had the qualifications to challenge the giants of the Forest of Chaos. Actually, these natives were thinking too much. The Heaven's Punishment had released over 1,000 heavy bombs, but it had already used up all of the heavy bombs in the company's storage. These 1,000 heavy bombs had taken Miracle Commerce over a month to make, so they couldn't use this kind of attack a second time in a short period of time. But it didn't matter. Just this once was enough. No matter who it was, after seeing the might of the Heaven's Punishment, they would not dare have thoughts of fighting against Miracle Commerce. Even the giants of the forest would have to consider the consequences. There were basically no casualties in the Allied army. This was a glorious and shocking performance. When the Oldman Town citizens saw the victorious Allied army, they were filled with confidence. The marauders were just a group of clowns, a group of stupid and ignorant moths flying into a flame. The people seemed to be seeing a brand new forest city slowly rising. In the near future, the population would explode. The previous few times they dealt with the spider race was just to show Miracle Commerce's abilities, but after killing the marauders this time, Oldman's small town's name would spread throughout the forest. Before long, large amounts of locals would come to join them. Meng Qingwu began to plan the living quarters in the valley. At this moment, the spiritual pressure in the small town suddenly increased. With a heaven-shaking aura, Chen Bingyu came out of closed-door cultivation. She had already broken through to the true spirit realm. Chen Bingyu had officially become the first true spirit cultivator of Miracle Commerce. After a few days, Dongfang Haoren also came out of closed-door cultivation, also reaching the true spirit realm. Miracle Commerce had gained 2 true spirit experts in an instant, instantly making up for their lack of battle strength. It could be said to be a double blessing. Chu Tian arranged for Miracle Commerce to hold a celebration banquet. To celebrate Miracle Commerce's breakthrough. The news of the marauders being wiped out would cause a small disturbance in the forest. The large local powers in the core area of the forest were filled with fear towards Miracle Commerce. Although the marauders were the common enemy of most of the forest powers, Miracle Commerce's battle had caused dissatisfaction in the forest. There was a legendary secret valley in the depths of the Forest of Chaos, Refaxius. Refaxius meant the sun and eternity in the Elven language, therefore people called the valley the Eternal Valley. The legendary Elven city in the Eternal Valley was called the Eternal Forest. There was a white gravel path covered with fluorescent moss in the dense forests and swamps of the dangerous valley. It was the only entrance and exit to several ancient wards. If one knew the way to open the wards, he would be able to walk into the Eternal Valley. The Eternal Forest in the Eternal Valley was always filled with vitality and ancient might. A warm and dazzling light rose from the Eternal Forest's sun well, covering the entire forest. There were over 1 million elves living in the forest, and there were elven wooden and stone houses that were like works of art. Beautiful elven songs filled every corner of the eternal forest. The Elven King's palace was on a cliff filled with waterfalls and was carved from pure white jade. Each detail was filled with an unimaginable sense of art and culture. That's right. This was the eternal forest. The forest of chaos would Elven King City. The elves had long lifespans, and when they bathed in the powerful light of the sun well, they would be free from all diseases. They would obtain even more power and live longer. The Elven Council. Several dozen elven elders were present. A white-haired old elf was sitting in the chairman's seat. In the past several tens of thousands of years, how many countries and races have perished? Their deaths were caused by blindly chasing after strength, progress, and development. Strength can make people crazy, progress can make people lose their way, and development can cause wars. This is the root of all disasters. Therefore, our race should follow the principle of tens of thousands of years. Only by being closed and conservative can we continue our noble and grand civilization. The elves will not take the initiative to fight. What we have now is enough for our race to multiply. The Elven Council's chairman Augusta's long and slow speech floated through the meeting room. It was unknown how many times the chairman had repeated his views and opinions. The other elves were still listening attentively and nodding their heads. The elves were a noble, righteous, conservative, and traditional race. They were confident that they were the strongest race on the continent. How could those aggressive spirit beasts and lowly humans compare to the elves? Countless times of history had told the elves that war was destruction, so the elves would never take the initiative to start a war. The elves had to follow the tens of thousands of years of tradition, remaining closed off from the world. Only like this could they not be tainted by the world on the continent. The Elven King was sitting next to Augusta. The Elven King looked like a human in his 40s. He had the handsome face of every male elven, but his face was angular and lacked the femininity of the elves. It was as if it was carved by the continent's most outstanding sculptor. Every inch of his skin was as exquisite as jade, and every pore seemed to contain essence. From head to toe, every inch of his body was perfect. He was a work of art that was as natural as the heavens. He knew that Augusta was scolding the locust again. Recently the Elven King had hidden the matter of occupying a forest city from the council. This matter had already caused the dissatisfaction of the conservative members of the council. The elves were a noble and elegant race. How could they take the initiative to occupy a city? The elves were a conservative and peaceful race. How could they take the initiative to attack? This matter had not been discussed by the council. The Elven King's actions had seriously broken the elven tradition, so there was a large disagreement among the elves about how to deal with this city. According to the elves' customs, once there was a disagreement, they would need to discuss it again and again. It would be as short as 1 or 2 years and as long as 10 to 20 years. Finally, when there was no more debate, this matter would be settled. After this long, even if this forest city was not barren, it would have already been occupied by others. The Elven King felt very helpless about this. He even knew that this city had a strategic value to the elves. Not only could it consolidate the elves' position in the Forest of Chaos, it could also be used as a channel for the elves to connect to the outside world. The elves were too closed off. When the rules became shackles, the elves were still proud of it. Helpless, the Elven King was only a king. The Elven King did not have absolute power. There was another matter that happened recently. The chairman said indignantly, "It's that human that you let go." He brought his men to wreak havoc in the forest and used the excuse of exterminating a group of bandits to burn down dozens of miles of the forest. What? This is truly too hateful. The flowers, grass, and trees are all innocent. How could they destroy nature just to kill a group of bandits? This is truly a despicable and immoral way of doing things. These elves began to discuss, expressing their dissatisfaction with Chu Tian's actions. Chapter 397. The Elven Counselors were elected and the elves participating had to meet a series of requirements. For example, they had to be over 500 years old, have a cultivation in the 3rd true spirit layer, have a good character, follow ancient etiquette, and have integrity. It was because of this election system that the elven counselors were all stubborn old men. The elves that reached the true spirit realm could live for around 1,000 years. The current chairman was a living fossil that was already over 1,000 years old. With the chairman's strength and abilities, living for another 300–400 years was not a problem. The vitality of the elves was too strong. This led to the slow metabolism of new elves. The new generation of elves would always be shrouded in the influence of the older generation of elves for a long period of time. The Elven Council would also change very slowly. With the control of these old elves, even if there were some radical and innovative new elves, as long as they worked with these old elves for 100 or 200 years, they would become a new stubborn old elf. The elven etiquette, the elven faith, and the elven character had already become a firm shackle. It had locked the elves of the continent for close to 10,000 years. 10,000 years was not a long time for the elven civilization. At most it would be 10 generations of leaders. But for the spirit beasts and humans, it was enough to change the world. A ruler of the continent that once looked down on 10,000 races. Now it had already declined beyond recognition. Even in the Forest of Chaos, the influence of the elves was still the same. The elves did not think about how to revive their race, rather they thought about how to maintain the dignity of the elves, how to protect the noble image of the elves, and how to distinguish the elves from the other races of the continent. Little did they know that in the eyes of humans, the elves had already become a strange race. Even the low and warlike spirit beasts already disdained the elves. This human Chu Tian is this cruel. A member of the Elven Council loudly proposed, "It's just a victory," yet they disregarded the ancient trees that have grown for thousands of years. They disregarded the life and death of the animals in the forest. This kind of selfish behavior should be punished and boycotted by the elven race. That's right, reconsider. An Elven Council member stood up. All beings have life, even a stronger expert cannot casually bring disaster to other beings. This kind of cruel method is simply polluting the forest. It is a blasphemy against the forest and nature. If there were humans here, they would definitely laugh at the elves' discussion. To protect a small forest, could they disregard victory? Perhaps the elves could do such a thing, but the humans would think that they were extremely stupid. An elven counselor suddenly pointed at an elder sitting next to the chairman. "Vice Chairman Ulysses, you had the chance to execute this human, but you let him leave the Tree of Life forest. That's why all of this happened. You should take responsibility for this." Ulysses said with a frown, "I have investigated the matter and have given you the report. Chu Tian's matter is pardonable and there is no malicious intent to abduct the elves. Chu Tian is a rare talent of the human race. If the elves mishandle this matter, I'm afraid we'll be cursed for eternity. Let's not talk about Chu Tian for now." Another council member said, "Vivian is the elf who has broken the rules the most in 100 years. Not only did you not punish her, you even let her go. Where was the spirit of the elves' legal system if they didn't receive any punishment for doing something wrong? Have you considered the negative impact this will have on the other young elves?" Yeah. Vice Chairman, this matter was handled improperly. No matter what that human did, Vivian's violation of the rules is a fact. Ulysses was a bit unhappy. Vivian has already grasped spatial technology. This is a great technology that can change the elves' lives. I let her return to Chu Tian's side to learn more knowledge and contribute to the elves. The elves are living very well right now. There is no need to change anything. When did the elves learn from low-level humans? This is simply an insult to the noble elves. While the elven counselors were criticizing, only a few people remained silent. These were all members of the reformist faction. Only the conservative faction was too strong. According to the traditions of the elves, once they started arguing, they would not reach a conclusion even after several days and nights. The Elven King was a bit restless. "Let's end the discussion here, we'll discuss this later." The counselors had no objections. The elves had a habit of procrastinating. After all, their lives were too long and their lives were too leisurely. Things that could be done in a day could be done in 10 days, so they would discuss it tomorrow. After the Elven King dismissed the meeting, he walked to the corridor alone. The elven royal palace's corridor was built on a cliff and there were several white jade waterfalls hanging on the side. Looking down from the corridor, one could see the entire eternal forest. The sun was releasing a glow. Every inch of the eternal forest was covered in a dignified aura. The orange sunlight of dusk shined down on the vibrant forest as the elves carved, sang, and painted. That peaceful atmosphere could make any ambitious person fall in. The Elven King's statue-like face revealed a trace of helplessness. With the elves' current situation, he was powerless even if he wanted to. The elves of the continent were already scattered sand and the elves were still immersed in this peaceful atmosphere. Would they only wake up when the flames of war reached the forest? Perhaps it would already be too late by then. Ulysses walked to the Elven King's side. There's news from Green City that there's a plague in the surroundings and a foreign race riot. The city is already in chaos and the situation is not good. If we don't send troops, we'll lose this city that we just captured. Send troops? The Elven King shook his head. Will the council agree? Ulysses revealed a blank look. We've spent this much effort to obtain this city. Do we have to give it up like this? We can't not give it up. When the Elven King said this, there was a spark in his mind. After this spark appeared, it was like he had fallen into oil, suddenly igniting it. A thought filled his mind. Giving it up doesn't mean giving it up. It can be used for other purposes. Ulysses was a bit surprised. What did you say? The Elven King turned to look at Ulysses. I'm very interested in that human youth called Chu Tion. They can manage a small town well, meaning they have the ability, but a small town is still a small town. Not to mention it's on the edge of the forest, so no matter how lively it is, it can't really become a big town. Ulysses could already guess what the Elven King was thinking. Your meaning is? The Elven army can't be used, so we'll find a reliable friend to help. I think that what Chu Tion needs the most right now is a city. Only by having a true city in the forest can he display his talents in this forest. I'll give him a city. Not only will it not fall into other people's hands, it will also help a friend at the right time. Chu Tion's influence is too weak in the end. This city's meaning is not normal. Can he really control the situation? There will be risks, so we can only secretly help as much as we can. The Elven King said this, but don't forget that humans are a race that likes to take risks. As long as the benefits are large enough, even if they know there are risks, they will not hesitate. This is the biggest difference between humans and elves. Ulysses was helpless and disappointed. It was indeed like this. The Elven King waved his hand and said, Go, this city will still be under the Eternal Forest's name. He will become the legitimate city lord, but whether he can control this city or not will depend on his abilities. Ulysses left the Eternal Forest. He rode the dragon hawk beast to Oldman Small Town in a day and night. At this time, Oldman Small Town was still in the joy of a large victory. People from different races and powers were all drinking and chatting in the small town. Ulysses walked into the underground town. Although Oldman Small Town was not big, it was brightly lit like it was daytime. The buildings were scattered and each street was like blood vessels, with the merchants and townspeople moving through the streets being the blood. This small place was filled with vitality. This was something that could not be seen in the Elven City. The small town had a movie theater, a hotel, and a training hall. Each place was very special, attracting a large amount of people. But the most lively place was the Oldman Market. The current Oldman Market was very famous. No matter how many materials there were in the forest, as long as they were transported, they could be sold by the market. If the locals wanted to buy pills, talismans, or other daily necessities, no matter how big the demand was, the small town could supply them. This kind of strong supply and demand ability filled the market with vitality, giving birth to many small merchants. The big-eared monsters, the goblins, the rat people, and the rabbit people, these weak races were everywhere. The ogres did not even rob them. These large fellows all knew how to buy resources from other small towns and then use their broad shoulders and strong stamina to sell them in Oldman Small Town. They used the source stones they earned to buy their favorite canned food, or they directly went to a hotel to eat a big meal. Oldman Small Town did not discriminate. Every race was treated equally, and they lived in harmony here. This prosperity was supported by spatial transportation. With such a great technology in the hands of an elf, there was a chance for the elves to use it. The old fellows of the Elven Council all disdained this, which made Ulysses feel very heartache and helpless. "What did you say?" Chu-tun almost fainted from this pie falling from the sky. "The Elven King wants to give me a city?" "That's right," Ulysses said in a certain voice. "This is a large city in the center of the Forest of Chaos, with several dozen spirit veins intersecting. It is surrounded by secret realms and hidden treasures, being one of the main hubs of the Forest of Chaos. It is rich beyond imagination. If you can control this city, you will have a lot of influence in the forest." The miracle commerce people were stunned. Chapter 398. Chu Tian was very clear on how hard it was to have a city in the Forest of Chaos. First, a forest city had to be built on a special transportation hub with abundant spiritual energy. Without enough resources, no matter how luxurious the city was, it wouldn't have any value and it would be hard to attract people to move in. Next, the owner of the city had to be strong enough because without enough strength to defend the city, who would dare rely on you in this chaotic place? Each forest city lord was a peak power that could ignore the dark forest laws. These forest cities were strategic, resource, and survival bases that the giants fought over. Most of the citizens in the forest cities lived in their own clans. For example, the Elven City, the Spirit Beast City, the Giant City, or the Sea Ray City. These races had a large population, therefore 80% of the people in their cities were from their own clans. The Dragon Lord was a special existence. The dragon race was after all a rare race and did not have a large population, but the giant dragon had a shocking wealth and incomparable strength, so it had gathered a large amount of followers, so it would not lose to the large powers. What did Chu Tian have? This kind of small foreign power did not have a foundation in the Forest of Chaos. He did not have his own country or clansmen, nor did he have the strength and deterrence of the giant dragon, so it was useless even if he occupied a city. This was not a hot potato. This was a ticking time bomb that could blow him up at any time. That's right. In the battle of destroying the Marauders, it had already displayed Miracle Commerce's abilities, allowing many large powers to look at Chu Tian in a new light. The Heaven's punishment had caused an earth-shattering explosion in the forest, causing many giants to be filled with fear and vigilance, but that was it. They did not attack Oldman Small Town purely because they looked down on Oldman Small Town. In the end, benefits came first in a war, so the giants did not need to cause unnecessary trouble and losses for a city on the edge of the forest. If Miracle Commerce openly occupied a city, the situation would be completely different. A race that lacked influence, foundation, and strength, it was impossible for them to have this kind of city. The special thing about the current situation was that Green City still belonged to the Eternal Forest in name. The Eternal Forest was the core of the Elven power and the Elven Imperial City. The elves had lived in the Forest of Chaos for tens of thousands of years, so the name of the Eternal Forest was very useful. No matter who attacked this city, they would be declaring war on the Eternal Forest. In this way, with the fear of harming the innocent, direct military conflicts between large forces could be avoided to the greatest extent, and Chu Tian would be under a lot of pressure. All he had to do was to be careful of all kinds of dirty tricks. However, Chu Tian was also aware of the Elven King's predicament. Green City's location was too special. The Elven Council was worried that this city would fall into the hands of the elves and it would drag the peace-loving elves into a war they didn't want to see the most, so they would try to persuade the Elven King to give up on this city. So what if the Elven King was unwilling to give up this city? If the Council didn't send troops, the Eternal Forest wouldn't be able to send troops to defend it. A city without a name could not last long. When the Eternal Forest did not come to Green City for a long time, the others didn't need to guess what the elves' attitude was. It was only a matter of time before the city was taken. Now, the Elf King decided to take a gamble. On one hand, he still emphasized that Green City was a power of the Eternal Forest, making those people afraid of Green City not dare to make a move. On the other hand, he no longer wanted to control it and gave this chance to Chu Tian and his daughter Vivian. This was a chance. But it was a very dangerous chance. Green City's current situation was like walking on a tightrope. It was very dangerous. After studying the map sent by Ulysses, Miracle Commerce came to the conclusion that it wasn't that this city was bad, rather it was too good. It was located in the center of the Forest of Chaos, which was the battlefield for the various powers of the Forest of Chaos. The Dragon's Ridge, the Eternal Forest, the Titan Mountain Range, and the Savage Highlands. These were the most symbolic powers of the Forest of Chaos. Any one of them was enough to crush Miracle Commerce into powder. Green City happened to be where these powers converged. Other than these giants that were comparable to warring kingdoms, there were also many other strong forest powers. It had to be known that any power that could stand in the depths of the Forest of Chaos would not be inferior to a large kingdom at least. The Forest of Chaos was one of the oldest forests on the continent, so there were all kinds of fierce beasts that could bring a destructive disaster. There were some ancient secret realms and unknown environments that were very dangerous, so these were all things that needed to be considered. Miracle Commerce only had the support of a small southern summer country, and they did not have the home advantage at all. With Miracle Commerce's current strength, they could only be safe, but they did not have the ability to compete with the other large powers or mine the depths of the Forest of Chaos. If they overestimated themselves and carelessly entered, there would not be a good result. There wasn't much time left. Chu Tian needed to quickly make a decision. This choice was a bit difficult. The Miracle Commerce people all knit their brows. Meng Qingwu did not approve of taking risks. No one was clearer than her on the current situation. Miracle Commerce's strength had already been overestimated. Miracle Commerce could not use the Heaven's punishment to deal with the marauders this time. As for the berserkers that Miracle Commerce trained, even if they added in the Southern State Training Camp, they would not have more than 20,000 people and they could not transfer them for now. The Oldman army had to protect the small town, so they could not easily transfer them. Chu Tian did not have an army to use. Entering the dangerous forest alone like this, it would be very hard for him to protect himself, so how could he control the city? He was afraid that he would be swallowed whole before he could even stand firmly. Not even his bones would be left. The Forest of Chaos was divided by hundreds of races and the powers were very complicated. The safest strategy now was to properly manage the small town and slowly accumulate more resources and wealth. Then they would slowly control more locals and small towns. Then they would surround the center and slowly infiltrate into the forest, waiting for a chance to control a city and make it the center of the company. But thinking about it, if they missed this chance, with the company's current development speed, they would not be able to enter the depths of the forest in 2-3 years. Even if they had wings in the future and the time was ripe, would they still be able to obtain a good city like this? Behind each city was the shadow of a large power. If Miracle Commerce wanted their own city, they would inevitably become enemies with these powers. Giving away a city like this was definitely a meat pie falling from the sky. As for giving up on the city and purely operating as a company? Absolutely not. If it was a complete country, perhaps it could be done, but in a place like the Forest of Chaos where strength ruled, everything had to be supported by corresponding strength. Without strength, no matter how much wealth and resources they had, they would be rootless duckweed. I accept the Elven King's gift. Chu Tian took the map without thinking too much. I asked the Elven King to be assured, this city will not fall into anyone's hands. This one will do his best to make it prosperous. Ulysses was a bit filled with praise. Although the gift was tempting, people without enough courage would not dare accept it. Ulysses thought that Chu Tian would not dare accept it and would consider it for a few days even if he accepted it. He never thought that Chu Tian would be this straightforward, accepting it after just a bit of consideration. Such a person was either a brave and resourceful person, or a reckless person, or a combination of both. Although he didn't know if Chu Tian had the ability to sit in this position, as long as Green City did not fall into the hands of other powers, it would be beneficial to the elves. As for whether they could control the city or not, it was not that important. In the name of the Eternal Forest, I appoint you as Green City's city lord. Ulysses gave the Elven King's token to Chu Tian. You will have all the authority in Green City. The Eternal Forest will not interfere with any internal affairs, you just need to do what you want. Meng Yingying and Vivian revealed looks of joy. This was too great. They were simple-minded and did not think this much. This green city was a very good city. Although it was a city of the eternal forest in name, there were no elves in Green City, so there was no need for those old fogies to order them around. Miracle commerce was completely free in this city. Wasn't this what miracle commerce always wanted? Ulysses represented the eternal forest and the elven king in giving Chu Tian the position of city lord and giving Meng Qinggu and Vivian the position of vice city lord. There was no need to talk about Chu Tian and Meng Qinggu. Vivian also becoming the vice city lord was arranged by the elven king. Vivian was an elf and the elven king's daughter. If she became Green City's vice city lord, she would have an extra layer of protection for Green City because of her special status. Ulysses said to Chu Tian, Green City used to be a large local power, but because it had been suppressed for 100 years, Green City was obtained by the elven king through diplomatic means. However, the old power is in a very serious situation and there are many other powers eyeing it, so there is a lot of internal and external pressure. Other than that, there have been riots, famine, and plague recently. It is hard to accurately estimate the situation, so remember not to be in a rush to expose your identity. Observe the situation first before deciding. Although he had already guessed that Green City's situation was bad, he never thought it would be this bad. This would not be a small challenge. But Chu Tian was not afraid at all. He did not have the time or mind to slowly develop. With this kind of good opportunity in front of him, it would not match his personality if he didn't take it. As long as he found the right method, there was nothing that couldn't be done in this world. Chapter 399. Ulysses stood up and looked at Chu Tian before looking at Vivian. A complicated look flashed in his eyes. The Elven King's matter has been completed. I hope everything goes smoothly. I'll be leaving now. Vivian quickly asked, You won't stay in Oldman's small town for a few more days? There must be many things you can't imagine here. Perhaps it can move the people in the council. Ulysses slightly shook his head. Us elves are not a race that easily accepts new things, otherwise it wouldn't have been like this for tens of thousands of years. I still have things to do in the eternal forest, so I won't stay. Ulysses still left. Everyone felt this was a bit strange. This kind of words coming from the mouth of an elf made people feel strange. Chu Tian spread out the map Ulysses left on the table. Meng Yingying came over to take a look and couldn't help letting out a surprised cry. Wah, this map is too clear. That's right, this was the most complete and detailed map of the Forest of Chaos so far. Only the elves that had lived in the Forest of Chaos for tens of thousands of years could draw this kind of map. Each special area, each special terrain, each lake, each mountain range, each city, they were all clearly drawn. The elves did not have any copying techniques. The entire map was drawn by hand. Every line and every detail was drawn perfectly and precisely. Moreover, drawing such a large map definitely required a lot of effort. This map could be called a work of art with astonishing value, not to mention that the value of the map itself was definitely not low. Take a photo and make a few more copies. Chu Tian knew the value of this map, so he prepared to have Meng Yingying make a few more copies. However, his eyes suddenly froze as he looked at the map with a bit of surprise. What's wrong? Everyone felt that Chu Tian's eyes were a bit strange. Meng Yingying immediately asked, Is there something strange about this map? Chu Tian did not reply as he carefully observed it. This terrain was a bit familiar. He recalled the map of the continent in his mind and finally overlapped it with this area. In the end, Chu Tian was surprised to find that there were at least 7-8 overlaps that were similar. More than 30,000 years later, the forest here was basically developed, and a rich and populous country was established here. In Chu Tian's mind, it was a republic country with many races. This country was one of the top 10 wealthiest countries in the continent. The reason why this country was so wealthy was because they found a treasure left behind from the Great Desolate Era in this region. It was a true treasure trove. This place was different from any place that Chu Tian had been to before. This hidden treasure was even qualified to be written into history. It was left from the Untainted Age, and there was a very rare space-time fault in the hidden treasure. Regarding this memory, Chu Tian only paid a little attention to it and did not deliberately remember it, so he did not know the exact coordinates of the hidden treasure. However, he was certain that this place was in a certain area of the Forest of Chaos. What are you thinking? Chu Tian came back to his senses and hurriedly waved his hand. Although he knew that there was a treasure, it was easier said than done to find it. There were many treasures on the continent, but opening a treasure usually required an opportunity. Some treasures clearly knew that they were right under their feet, but they would never be able to touch them until they died of old age. The Great Desolate Era's secret could be buried in the Demonic God Era's secret. This was a large attraction to Chu Tian, but he did not dare have too much hope. He could only pay attention to it in the future. If he could find some clues, then it wouldn't be a bad idea to investigate it. Chu Tian waved his hand. It's nothing, we should think about how to obtain Green City. This is something we need to solve right now. This was a very risky decision, but Meng Qingwu did not complain. She was a good assistant and a smart woman. She knew that her responsibility was to help Chu Tian with all her strength and not to question him. The risk was high, but the reward was high. This risk was completely worth it. But they had to plan it properly. Meng Qingwu studied the map over and over again, as well as Ulysses' information over and over again. Meng Qingwu immediately made several decisions. First, they would increase their food reserves. Miracle Commerce would increase the price of demon beast meat by 20%, so they could buy more demon beast meat from the locals. This food would be sent to southern Xia to be processed into canned food or other food reserves. Oldman's small town did not lack food. From the information, there were some locals near Green City that were suffering from famine. There was a need, so stocking up on food was always a good thing. Second, they would increase their weapon reserves and upgrade their weapons. The silver crystal oil mines near Oldman's small town had already begun to be mined. This kind of silver crystal oil with even higher energy was enough to create even stronger source energy weapons. Not only could they arm their own troops, if they sold it in a reasonable way, it would push the situation in a favorable direction. For example, there were two locals that were potential enemies. What would Miracle Commerce do if they wanted to quickly eliminate them? Actually, it was very simple. First, they would use a method to provoke the two locals to fight, and then they would sell weapons and equipment to the weaker side, making their fight even more intense. Finally, both sides would become weaker and weaker. Not only would they reduce the number of potential enemies, they would also be able to fill their own pockets. Chu Tian had said before that the most profitable business in this world was weapons and energy. Meng Qingwu had always remembered this in her heart. The source energy weapons had always been self-produced, and now the weapons in stock were becoming more and more high-grade. With the ability to sell them, this would become an important diplomatic and defensive trump card for Miracle Commerce. Third, of course, they would make preparations and create a basic communication network. Green City was very chaotic and there were many uncertainties, so the information the elves sent was too one-sided. Oldman Small Town's army could not leave and Southern Xia's reinforcements could not arrive in a short period of time. The most suitable method now was to send a small team that would not attract attention. They would first gather information and integrate into the situation before thinking of a way to obtain Green City. Meng Qingwu sent out a communication airship. This was the cheapest and fastest airship, and Southern Xia had already made over 10 of them. Each communication airship could cover over 10,000 miles, and these airships were enough to form a communication network deep into the forest. Meng Qingwu sent out the latest Heaven's Eye airship. These two airships could allow Miracle Commerce to grasp information, which was very useful in this chaotic and closed-off forest. In these few days, Chu Tian did not do anything at all. He only refined large amounts of pills and gave everyone a cultivation plan, as well as leaving large amounts of spiritual knowledge for the flower fairies to study. Just one person was enough for this trip. Although Chu Tian had not reached the true spirit realm, he already had the ability to protect himself. Rather than wasting manpower, it was better to increase everyone's cultivation and prepare for Miracle Commerce to enter Green City. After a few days, over 100 miles from Oldman's small town, a Heaven's Net airship was parked in an open space. The entire airship was covered in reflective mirrors and the surrounding environment was reflected on it. The clean and forward-looking design made it seem like it was filled with technology. Meng Yingying asked, "How long will you be gone for this time?" "It should be around 10-15 days. Chu Tian could not be sure about this matter. "Do you remember the task I gave you?" Meng Yingying nodded and said, "Relax, I will properly cultivate and help the flower fairies." Chu Tian was going on a long journey alone. Although Meng Yingying was a bit worried, she was not as nervous as before. After all, she had confidence in Chu Tian and the company had already set up a communication network, so they could contact each other at any time. They could even use the image transferring mirror to communicate with each other. "There's no time to lose, I'm leaving now." This Heaven's Net airship was what Meng Qingwu wanted to deploy, so it was on the way for Chu Tian. After all, the forest environment was too dangerous. If they directly passed through the forest, they wouldn't even be able to reach their destination in 10-15 days. Even riding a flying demon beast was not safe. The airship was different. This thing could fly at an altitude of 30-40,000 meters. The chances of meeting demon beasts at this altitude were very low and the airship itself was very hidden, so there was no need to worry. Chu Tian only brought the storage gourd, a sword, and a fox, that was all. This was already enough. This gourd was an innate treasure, a living thing that could absorb spiritual energy to grow. After Chu Tian obtained this gourd from the Central State Tower, he had been slowly cultivating it. As the gourd grew, the storage space inside became larger and larger, now reaching 50 cubic meters. It was not common to have such a large storage space on one's body. Chu Tian had enough materials to open the space warehouse several dozen times. If he really needed something, he could directly use the space warehouse to get it from the small town. It was fast and convenient. "Goodbye." Chu Tian waved his hand to say goodbye to Yingying. The airship slowly started and it slowly rose into the sky with a gust of wind. When he saw the forest below him becoming larger and larger, Chu Tian couldn't help feeling a bit emotional. This thing was something that Chu Tian had made on a whim. He had never thought that it would have this many uses, but with the young miss and the Yunsek's constant research, this flying tool that Chu Tian had made on a whim had been given more and more uses. This made Chu Tian very satisfied. He had trained the Yunsect, trained the young miss, and trained all these helpers. Now he was starting to see returns. Chu Tian was certain that even if he disappeared now, Miracle Commerce could rely on its current technology and its ability to continuously innovate. It would still be a great company that could change the entire continent. A person's wisdom was limited in the end. But Miracle Commerce's current level was far from enough. Right now it could only make money, gather resources, and pull in influences. It was still far from the level that Chu Tian wanted to reach, so the road ahead was still very long. This green city, Chu Tian had to obtain it. Miracle Commerce had to have a foothold. Chapter 400. Chu Tian sat on the airship, maintaining a stable speed at an altitude of 40,000 meters. The entire cruising speed was very calm, not shaking at all in the past 2 days. He either watched the scenery and ate to pass the time, or he used the image transferring mirror to talk to Yingying and the young miss to pass the time. The airship's design was very perfect. There was only one thing he was not satisfied with. It was too slow. Of course, the speed was relative. It had to be known that the airship had traveled in 2 days, but it would take over 10 days for a fast horse to travel in a straight line. The terrain of the Forest of Chaos was very complex, and it was not flat terrain. There were all sorts of hidden dangers, and normal horses and demon beasts like leopards would find it hard to pass through. Even if a level 2 flying mount wanted to travel this far, it would still take at least a week. Compared to this, could the airship still be said to be slow? Not to mention that the airship had an advantage that no mount could compare to, which was its incomparable safety. This was because the airship's safe cruising altitude was around 30-40,000 meters and the air here was very thin compared to the ground. Even if those demon beasts that relied on their wings used 10 times their strength, they still wouldn't be able to fly at half their normal speed, or they might not even be able to fly at all. For the airship, because the air was less dense, the resistance and turbulence were less, allowing it to move forward more steadily. Only giant dragons and flood dragons could rely on yuan qi or some other special power to soar at such a high altitude. However, these legendary creatures were few and far between on the continent. In this tens of thousands of kilometers of air, the chances of encountering one were so minuscule that it was almost negligible. Chairman, we're almost there. This is already the airspace around Green City. Because we don't understand the terrain below, we can't land for safety reasons, so we can only trouble the chairman to land. Several Griffin Knights in charge of the airship helped Chu Tian open a cabin door. This was the Griffin stable and there was a cabin door in front of him. When he looked through the transparent crystal glass, the entire sky was a blue-white color. This was different from the blue sky on the ground. Because the structure of the plane itself was a nearly circular or elliptical dimensional domain, from the point of view of the creator, it was just a large bubble enveloped by independent time and space energy. However, this bubble was wrapped in a large amount of matter. The turbid and heavy parts of these materials precipitated at the bottom to form vast continents, while the light and vast energy gathered at the top to form the sun, air, and so on. Since ancient times, no one had been able to measure the thickness of the earth. Of course, no one had been able to accurately measure the height of the sky. This was because the concept of time and space was beyond the fourth dimension. It was abstract for creatures living in a three-dimensional environment. People could not perceive the entire structure of time and space, just like how people in paintings could not perceive the three-dimensional world. Light, thunder, these positive energies all returned to the top of the vault of heaven. Darkness, death, these negative energies settled under the ground. The ordinary elements of wind, fire, water, and earth filled the entire space. This was the basic model of the world that Chu Tian understood. This world was incomparably complex and vast, but at the end of the day, it was ruled by the same law. There's no need for a mount. I'll go down directly. Chu Tian refused to ride on the griffin. He slapped open one of the external cabin doors, looked down at the vast land beneath his feet, and directly leapt down. Several griffin riders gave shocked cries, but it was already too late to stop him. Chu Tian spread his limbs as he fell to the ground like a meteor. Mounts and such were superfluous. He quickly hit the clouds, and when the tangible but intangible clouds passed by him, it was like smooth silk brushing against his body. The entire earth continued to expand in his eyes. It's about time. Chu Tian took out a talisman and slapped it on his body. It was like his weight had suddenly decreased as he fell to the ground like a leaf. Finally, he fell into an incomparably lush forest, quickly breaking through large amounts of branches before finally falling to the ground. Although he had used the feather fall talisman to reduce his weight, falling from this high up in the sky, it was like a cannonball hitting the ground, creating a small hole. He had safely landed. Chu Tian tidied up his clothes and walked out of the hole. Over 80% of the forest of chaos was covered in forest, but the forest growing here was different from the outside. There was a large gap between the trees, and the trees were tall and straight. The tree trunks were thick and solid, being as hard as steel. This place was filled with spiritual energy, and even the most ordinary plants would experience quite a bit of change. Chu Tian estimated the direction. This place was to the northwest of Green City, at least 200 kilometers away. However, Chu Tian did not care about this because he did not plan on entering Green City. The main goal of this trip was to gather information. When Chu Tian was prepared to leave, the little fox came out and called out, "Ti, ti." Chu Tian immediately stopped. The little fox's perception was more sensitive than his, so it could sense danger before Chu Tian. Almost at the same time, there was a sense of danger that enveloped him. Actually, with Chu Tian's strength, normal level 1 or 2 demon beasts or awakened soul cultivators could not pose a threat to him. So, anything that could make him feel this sense of danger, it must be a very strong existence. He pulled out his sword and turned around. A sword glow flew out. But that sword chi was like a whip as it slammed into the sneak attacker. This violent strength instantly tore apart several trees, but the creature that sneak attacked him only let out a roar and flew back. It flipped in the air and nimbly escaped. What is this? Chu Tian did not even see the other side's appearance, so it could be imagined how fast this thing was. The little fox waved its tail and made a head-scratching action, looking a bit comical. Chu Tian asked in a doubtful voice, "Monkey?" The little fox nodded. This monkey that could block Chu Tian's sword, perhaps it was not a simple monkey. The little fox took out its eyeball and used it to scan its surroundings. The little fox's eyes lit up and it immediately called out for Chu Tian to run. Too late. Sharp and angry whistles came from all directions. Chu Tian's brows jumped up. Could it be that he had fallen into a nest of monkeys? Countless white silhouettes shot out. These monkeys moved at a speed not inferior to the speed of sound. Thus, when the monkeys' cries rang in their ears, several agile and vigorous afterimages disappeared and flashed several times, and they had already directly arrived in front of them. A milky white claw flew out. Chu Tian quickly used his sword to block in front of him. Those 4-5 claw glows released a powerful strength that forced Chu Tian back several steps. But Chu Tian's reaction was very fast and he immediately chased after it with a backhand slash. The Netherworld sword released a sword chi that was even stronger than before. The monkey was sent flying into a tree by the sword chi and it instantly shattered the tree. The monkey was covered in blood and its fur was ignited by the Netherworld flame, but it did not immediately die. It rolled around on the ground, trying to extinguish the Netherworld flame on its body. Chu Tian's sword chi could easily tear apart iron. Not only was this kind of monkey not split into two after suffering a head-on attack, it was actually able to jump around and struggle on the ground. Such a strong defense and the size of the rice grains was very surprising. These monkeys could reach the speed of sound, but they didn't make a single sound when they moved. It was like they had practiced a very high-level movement technique and the claw glows they released were a kind of martial skill. It was fine if there were only one or two of these powerful monkeys. However, once there were too many of them, even a high-level true spirit expert wouldn't be able to escape. Now that the forest was filled with shadows, there were at least several dozen of them surrounding them. It was probably because Chu Tian's sword had deterred these monkeys, so they were just standing in the forest, baring their teeth and not approaching. This also gave Chu Tian a chance to see the true faces of these monkeys. The monkeys were ash gray and were around a meter tall. Although they weren't big, they were very agile and their bodies were covered in a white glow. Several of the monkeys jointly spat out a cloud of white essence chi. This cloud of essence chi was like a cloud that enveloped the burning monkey's body. The Netherworld fire that was burning brighter and brighter was immediately extinguished. After a while, the monkey stood up again. Its skin was completely burnt and it looked a bit funny. However, it was still showing its teeth and seemed to be very spirited. Chu Tian was a bit shocked seeing this. They could actually heal each other? Chu Tian had never seen this kind of demon beast before, but from the strength they displayed, even if these monkeys weren't in the true spirit realm, they were at least in the 8-9th awakened soul layer. They also had extraordinary speed and iron bones, and adding in the fact that they were demon beasts that lived in groups, it was very hard to deal with them. They really were worthy of being in the depths of the forest of chaos. This random group of monkeys was already this hard to deal with. If they met a super fierce beast, Chu Tian's life would end here. There was no other way. He could only waste a bit of energy. The demon god's sword source spirit soared into the sky. Chu Tian gave a low roar as flames surrounded his body, instantly entering the flame demon transformation state. Chu Tian was only in the peak 9th awakened soul layer, but his cultivation instantly rose to the level of a true spirit cultivator. These monkeys were very fast, but with Chu Tian using the flame demon transformation and the Netherworld sword art, he was not afraid at all. These spiritual monkeys could clearly smell danger. They all tensed up and roared out while baring their teeth. It seemed like they wanted to go all out against Chu Tian. "Stop!" A voice came from the depths of the forest. When these monkeys heard this voice, they all withdrew their killing intent and retreated. Chu Tian was slightly taken aback when he saw this. Could it be that this wasn't a magical beast lair and these monkeys were raised by someone? Several people walked out of the forest. When they saw Chu Tian, their eyes were filled with a bit of caution. Chapter 401. Chu Tian took the initiative to scatter the flames. These were several spirit beasts. More accurately, they were several Fox Clan spirit beasts. It said that this race was one of the smartest of the spirit beasts. The Fox Clan did not have a strong physique, so they could not practice body tempering or close combat cultivation techniques. However, they were very good at controlling certain kinds of energy. These Fox Clan people gave Chu Tian a very strange feeling. There was a total of 4 of them, 3 males and 1 female. There was a Fox Clan old man and 3 Fox Clan youths. The Fox Clan's beauties were also very famous. Although the Fox Clan were spirit beasts, they were like the Rabbit Clan. Their appearance was in line with the mainstream aesthetics of the continent, and they were different from the pure elves. The Fox Clan women were more wanton, and the Fox Clan was very realistic and vain. They worshipped money, power, and strength, but it was because of these characteristics that the Fox Clan was liked by the human nobles. It wasn't like Chu Tian had never seen a Fox Clan before. Actually, back in South Sky City, he had seen Fox Clan slaves in the Een Corpse Valley's black market, but the Fox Clan people in front of him were wearing strange clothes. They were wearing large white robes and holding strange staves in their hands. There was a mysterious symbol that was different from the mainstream runes of the continent, but it was filled with power that covered their robes and staves. "Who are you?" A Fox Clan youth stood up and shouted, "Why are you injuring the spirit monkeys?" These were most likely the locals. But was he an idiot? These damn monkeys sneak attacked father. Was he supposed to just stand here and let them hit him? Chu Tian looked at the old man in the middle. This old man's aura was deep and powerful. Perhaps he was not a normal person. Actually, in the depths of the Forest of Chaos, even if it was a small tribe, Chu Tian did not dare be careless. After all, a small tribe that could survive here would not lose to a large tribe on the edge. Misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Chu Tian sheathed his sword. A strong dragon could not suppress a local snake. He was going to be the city lord here in the future, so it was best not to offend these locals. In order to show his respect and friendliness, he deliberately used the spirit beast language to say, "I am just a traveler that came from afar. This is my first time here and I am not familiar with this place, so I accidentally entered this place. If I have disturbed you, I will leave now." "Grandpa, this guy is sneaky. He's definitely not a good guy." Another fox youth said to the elder beside him, "I think he's most likely a spy sent by the druids and shamans to gather information. Why don't we lock him up and interrogate him first?" Druids? Shamanism? A strange look flashed across Chu Tian's eyes. He had seen these 2 terms in ancient books, but he didn't expect to see them in real life one day. This surprised Chu Tian a little. However, did these ancient sects still exist in this era? The fox elder had clearly noticed the strange look in Chu Tian's eyes. How could an outsider know about druids and shamans? Don't you think that you are trying to hide something? This time, it was really a misunderstanding. The situation is very tense now. I'd rather kill the wrong person than let them go. The fox elder instructed the fox lady beside him in a low voice, "Dolores, go and capture him." The oldest of the 3 fox youths, as well as the only female among them, walked out. This woman had a voluptuous figure and a head full of silver white hair. She looked to be around 24 or 25 years old, which was the age where she was getting rid of her youth and maturing. The unique charm of the Fox clan made her look even more enchanting. This really is a misunderstanding. You don't need to be so nervous. Chu Tian looked like he had a headache. I don't like to hit women. Dolores didn't waste any words. She took out a bottle filled with incantations. Chu Tian couldn't recognize the strange incantations. From the style, it seemed to be quite ancient. Perhaps only the young miss would be able to recognize its origin. However, what really attracted Chu Tian's attention was not the incantations on the bottle, but the thing inside the bottle. It was a ball of purple soul energy. A small bottle could contain soul energy? These natives were pretty good. Dolores held the bottle with both hands and devoutly chanted, "Great demonic god, please hear my call and bestow me with great power." The small bottle quickly lit up. Chu Tian frowned. This was the first time he had encountered a move that even he couldn't understand. The bottle cap was suddenly pushed open by a surge of energy. The soul dispersed evenly into the air, and Dolores seemed to be focusing on elemental energy inside. The originally transparent soul body was like an empty water bottle that was suddenly filled, and it finally transformed into a huge green creature. It landed on the grass, and a wave of fiendish aura pervaded the air. This was a 6-meter-tall mantis. It seemed to have a physical form, but it wasn't a specter, nor was it a physical life form. It existed in a special form between the two. Chu Tian was dumbfounded. Soul's secret technique? Necromancy's secret technique? No, it didn't seem like it. What kind of strange move was this? While Chu Tian was in a daze, the mantis waved its arm and 2 green energy blades quickly flew out. Wherever they went, 2 deep marks were left on the ground. Chu Tian had no choice but to slash out with his sword again. The netherworld sword released an intense flame and the energy blades were cut in half. The mantis flew into the air with extreme speed. The 2 dark green blades wildly slashed out like a wild storm. Chu Tian quickly waved his sword left and right. In just a breath's time, the blades clashed several dozen times and the sharp sword chi destroyed the surrounding trees. This thing was not weak. It was at least in the peak 9th awakened soul layer. Chu Tian did not want to offend these natives, so he did not release his source spirit and did not use his full strength. If this young fox woman had this kind of method, then how strong was the old man behind her? Even if he used his full strength, he might not be able to win. This kind of situation was not good for him. The fox youths saw that the illusory mantis could not take down Chu Tian after a long time, so they immediately took out a whistle-like tool from their chests and blew on it. The vigorous monkeys came back. Take him down! This mantis was a bit strenuous. If these damn monkeys attacked together, it would be a mess. Fox, what are you looking at? It's time for you to make a move. The little fox stretched out a claw and gave a yawn. Then it casually took a deep breath and the incomparably fierce mantis body suddenly exploded. It turned into smoke and was swallowed into the little fox's stomach. Dolores's expression changed. My illusory mantis. The little fox suddenly spat out the soul it had sucked into its stomach. The soul turned back into a giant praying mantis, but it was different from the energy praying mantis from before. The praying mantis that the little fox had summoned was completely solid. It was almost exactly the same as a living phantom mantis. Its aura, strength, and abilities were all perfectly similar to the illusory mantis when it was alive. This was simply a living creature. It was at least several times stronger than the one Dolores summoned. As for the surrounding monkeys, the little fox revealed a look of disdain and suddenly jumped into the air. Its small body instantly turned into a large fox as it landed on the ground. Its 3 white furry tails swayed behind it, and its 2 eyes released a strange green glow as an invisible energy was released. The spiritual monkeys that were prepared to attack Chu Tian trembled. When they landed on the ground, their eyes had all turned green. It was clear that their minds had been controlled. They all lined up in front of the fox, obedient as if they were the fox's pets. The fox licked its claws and looked down at the fox people with a condescending gaze. Its gaze clearly said, "You jumping clowns, you still dare to use this kind of insignificant skill in front of this fox?" Chu Tian was stunned. Damn, when did this fox become this strong? When the mantis was summoned, it was already close to the true spirit realm. As for the several dozen white spiritual monkeys, they were all at the 7th to 8th awakened soul layer. Chu Tian also noticed that when the little fox first transformed in southern Xia, it only had 2 tails, but now it had 3 tails. Going from a 2-tailed fox to a 3-tailed fox, didn't that mean its strength had increased by a level? The food it ate in the Flower Fairy tribe was enough to make several true spirit realm experts. It seemed like it wasn't completely wasted. Now, it wasn't just the youths of the fox race who were stunned. The eyes of the fox race elder, who had been extremely calm the entire time, nearly popped out. He shouted with an agitated expression, "Demon God! It's the demon god! This is the great demon god!" The old fox man kneeled down in excitement. The three fox youths also had faces filled with shock. This mysterious fox's strength and appearance was very similar to the legendary king of 10,000 demons. Could it be that the demonic god had returned to this world? The little fox's eyes were filled with suspicion. It didn't know what these fellows were doing. Quickly go. Immediately inform the others to welcome Sir Demonic God. With the demonic god's descent, our sect will prosper. After a few minutes, several thousand fox people wildly ran out. When they saw the little fox, they all knelt down on the ground and shouted, "Long live the demonic god," their faces filled with sincerity. The little fox did not understand what was happening at first, but with its intelligence, how could it not understand? These fellows clearly worshipped it. Since they worshipped this fox, how could this fox not accept it? The old fox man excitedly said, "We didn't know that the demonic god had descended. We have offended you. We ask the demonic god to forgive us." These fox people all looked at it with fanatical expressions. The little fox gave a snort, not used to this kind of scene. Chu Tian did not understand what was happening, but these Fox Clan spirit beasts seemed to worship this damn fox, so it saved him some energy. He immediately walked forward and said, Everyone, I've already said that this was a misunderstanding. Since this damn fox, this demonic god is someone you know, that means we are not enemies." Right. Quickly invite the demonic god into the temple. We will use all of our clan's power to worship the demonic god. The little fox was surrounded by a group of fox people as it swaggered away, leaving only Chu Tian to stare at it from the side. In his impression, the Fox clan was one of the smartest races on the continent. They did business and were very shrewd, but why were these Fox clan idiots? How did this damn fox look like a dog fart demonic god? Chapter 402. Did you make a mistake? Chu Tian couldn't help asking Dolores beside him, "How does this fellow look like a god?" Dolores had a pious expression. When she heard Chu Tian say this, she angrily glared at him. "You dare insult the great demonic god. You are becoming enemies with my demonic god religion." Demonic god religion? He'd never heard of it before. But it should be a religion similar to the Druid religion or Shaman religion. This was not a human sect like the Tianma cult. There was a fundamental difference between the two. Sects mainly relied on passing down cultivation techniques, so their members were very concentrated, belonging to a very high degree of power. Religions mainly relied on passing down their faith. Of course, religions also had their own cultivation techniques, but their members were not concentrated. The same religion, not only could it cross regions, it could even cross races. What is going on with your demonic god religion? Chu Tian ignored Dolores's hostile gaze. There's also the druids and shamans. How many religions are there in this place? Dolores didn't want to talk to this fellow who injured the spirit monkey and disrespected the demonic god, but the demonic god was brought here by him, so Dolores could only give a simple explanation. It turned out that religion was very popular in the depths of the Forest of Chaos. After all, this forest was too ancient, so there were many ancient things that had been passed down. Although there were many religions in this area, the strongest were the Druid religion, the Shaman religion, the Undead religion, and the Green religion. As for the demonic god religion that the Fox people believed in, it could only be considered a second-rate power. Green religion? Chu Tian was stunned. What relationship does the Green religion have with Green City? This fellow seemed like he really was an outsider, not even knowing this. The Green religion is a group of fellows that believe in the forest god. Their faith is a branch of the elves. The Green religion had a large influence in the forest before, but now they have declined and cannot compare to the druids and shamans. So it was like this. The Green religion was a branch of the elves, so it was no wonder the Elven King could obtain Green City through diplomatic means. Chu Tian never thought that the powers here would be this complicated. Just these churches were enough to give him a headache. Because the believers of the church were usually very fanatical, these kinds of people were the most troublesome to deal with. The cultivation techniques of these religious believers were often very special. For example, if a fire god religion believer had a water-attributed source spirit, cultivating a fire-attributed cultivation technique was simply courting death. But if they cultivated a fire-attributed cultivation technique, as long as their faith was strong enough, the power of faith would protect their source spirit from the backlash of the cultivation technique. So the deeper their faith, the deeper their cultivation technique would be. Therefore, the cultivation techniques passed down in religions were mostly related to faith. The object of worship or belief of these religious believers was not as simple as spiritual sustenance. Instead, it had a great relationship with their cultivation and growth. Therefore, the believers would be more fanatical and devout. The move that Dolores had just displayed was obviously a summoning technique similar to the one used by the fox. This kind of summoning technique was not found in any ancient books, so even Chu Tian did not know much about it. It should be a special demonic technique used by the ancient demon race. It was almost certain that ordinary people couldn't use this kind of demonic art. Even if Chu Tian wanted to learn it, he couldn't learn it. However, these foxmen could use it. They weren't from the ancient demon race. There was only one possibility. There was an ancient demonic god that used a certain method to create this religion, allowing these low-level beings to believe in it and use its power. Chu Tian did not know the reason why the ancient demonic gods created this religion, but there was a saying that the faith of all living beings was a great power. The demonic gods could absorb the power of faith to become stronger. Looking at it like this, the little fox's ancestor might really have some relationship with these foxmen. There was a tall temple in the center of the native tribe. The temple was made from the bones of giant beasts and giant boulders, being over 100 meters tall. It was very grand and magnificent, but looking at how it had been eroded by the wind, this temple had a very long history. This tribe was very small, with a total population of less than 20,000 people. Don't think that they were easy to bully just because they were small. The entire tribe was filled with devout believers of the demonic god religion, and most of them could use their souls to summon demon beasts to fight. Other than that, the demonic god religion was also proficient in taming beasts. Just like the spirit monkeys outside the forest, they were all tamed by the demonic god religion, so they could not be underestimated. At least they could sweep through any tribe on the outside. The little fox had already turned back to its original form. It was only the size of a palm, but it was sent to the high platform by the zealous believers, receiving the prayers of all the fox clansmen. The little fox also quickly got into its role. Although it was only a little big, it curled its tail and sat upright on the ground. Its pair of black eyes were shining, and it had a dignified posture like a lion. It swept its gaze across the crowd and then raised its paw, indicating for everyone to rise. Chu Tian rolled his eyes, too lazy to watch this fox act cool. He walked around by himself. There were many totems in this temple, and the one that appeared the most frequently was a fierce and majestic nine-tailed demon fox. The young miss had records of the nine-tailed demon fox in her heavenly book memories. It was said that in the ancient demon race that coexisted with the demons and gods in the great ancient era, the nine-tailed demon fox was the ruler of 10,000 demons, the king of 10,000 demons. They grasped all the powerful demonic techniques of the demon race, and their might could even make the demons and gods retreat. It seemed like the little fox really was the descendant of the nine-tailed demon fox. Chu Tian was still a bit confused. The nine-tailed demon fox's descendant had been bred in a 10,000-year-old Een corpse for 10,000 years. After being born in this kind of evil environment, not only did the little fox have its ancestors' abilities, it also seemed like it had the ability to break through evil energies. At this time, there were excited and joyful cheers coming from the temple. The little fox was on a stone slab, using its nails to write a large piece of strange content. Chu Tian did not recognize any of these words. It should be the language of the demon race. From the looks of joy in the believer's eyes, this should be how to use a certain demonic technique. These believers all bowed their heads in thanks. When the ceremony finished, the Fox clan's men, women, and children all brought in all kinds of good things. There were treasures, spiritual fruits, crystals, and demon jades, all of which were used to worship the little fox. The little fox was happy to the point of forgetting home. It had never been worshipped like this before, with all these good things being given to it. Compared to this, its master was too vile, beating it for eating too much. The little fox's proud appearance made Chu Tian want to punch it, but Chu Tian was very clear in his heart that if he beat the fox in this situation, he would be beaten up by the crazy believers. He had to endure it for now. In the end, this was an unexpected harvest. Chu Tian came to Green City to gather information and also to see if he could rope in a few locals, but he did not have much hope because the locals here were very strong and it was not easy for an outsider like Chu Tian to enter. Now it was good he had saved quite a bit of effort. This demonic god religion was weak, but being able to establish themselves here meant that they had some strength. Moreover, they had lived here for many years, so they had a good understanding of the situation around Green City. They were the allies that Chu Tian needed the most. Everyone should have seen that I and your demonic god religion are companions, so we are not enemies. When these words were said, everyone was stunned. They all looked at the little fox that was gorging itself on the food. The little fox felt everyone's gaze and suddenly looked up at Chu Tian. Its heart instantly bloomed with joy. Master, master, I never thought that there would be a day where you would ask this fox for help. As long as this fox gives the order, I will strip you naked and spank your butt to take revenge for you spanking my butt. Chu Tian's eyes flashed with an ominous glow as he looked at it. The little fox gave a snort and could only nod before continuing to eat. The old fox man who was also the high priest quickly stood up. Since your excellency is the demonic god's friend, of course you are our most respected guest. If there is anything we can help you with, our demonic god religion will not decline. This was more like it. Chu Tian cleared his throat. Since the high priest has said this, I will honestly introduce myself. Actually, I am the new city lord of Green City and I came here alone this time mainly to inquire about the situation. Green City's city lord? Everyone looked at him with a strange expression. When did the Green City's city lord become a human? Wasn't this city taken by the elves a few days ago? The elves and humans did not have a good relationship. It could even be said to be very unfriendly. How could the elves give an important city like Green City to humans? However, they had no choice but to believe it. Chu Tian directly took out the Elven King's token. The fox people were in an uproar. They never would have thought that this young man would actually be the Eternal Forest's city lord. If he really became the city lord, then the surrounding 1,000 miles would be his territory. These demonic god religion followers would naturally be under the city lord's control. The high priest was the calmest as he gave a few soft coughs. Although your excellency is the city lord, with Green City's situation, it won't be easy for you to sit on the city lord's throne. Chu Tian liked dealing with smart people. This would save him a lot of effort. Although most of the fox people were acting like a group of idiots, worshipping this damn fox and fawning over him, the fox race had the highest intelligence among the spirit beasts. This was a very smart race, and as long as they were properly trained, they would become natural profiteers or sly politicians. For the high priest to be the leader of these people, he could naturally see the relationship between their demonic god and this young man. The demonic god had come with this young man, and from the young man's disrespectful gaze towards the demonic god, perhaps even their demonic god had to compromise with Yao. This young man claimed to be Green City's city lord, but he came alone without any troops. Although his strength wasn't bad, it was only not bad. Just the demonic god religion alone had over 50 people that could deal with him. He most likely had the qualifications to be the city lord, but he didn't have the strength to sit on that position, so he came alone to scout. If they helped him when he didn't have the strength to become the city lord, then when this person became the Green City's city lord in the future, wouldn't it be very helpful to the demonic god religion? Chapter 403. Chu Tian temporarily stayed in the Fox clan's tribe. The little fox lived the life of an emperor, and each fox clan treated it as a spiritual god. The little fox would teach its followers demonic techniques from time to time, and there were some demonic techniques that it couldn't even use, but these memories had been engraved in its soul since it was born. The followers became even more fanatical. Everyone could see that the little fox was still in its infancy, but they could be sure that it was the descendant of the demonic god religion's great demonic beast. Just based on this, the little fox had the qualifications to sit in the temple and accept the worship of all the believers. Chu Tian was collecting information on Green City while understanding the Fox clan's strength. The Fox clan was not weak. They only had 20,000 people and several true spirit realm experts. When he heard this number from the high priest's mouth, Chu Tian was instantly shocked. This was too exaggerated. There were several true spirit cultivators in 20,000 people, and this was only a small tribe. Then wouldn't there be over 1,000 true spirit cultivators in a forest city with several million people? Although the Forest of Chaos had rich spiritual veins and it was easy to find high-level sacred herbs and precious herbs, so the people that grew up here were not people that the southern summer country's barren lands could compare to, this ratio was still a bit too shocking. The high priest explained, "No need to be shocked. My clan believes in the demonic god and the entire clan uses their power of faith to cultivate, so our cultivation base grows faster than normal cultivators." There was a difference between followers and cultivators. The cultivation techniques these followers cultivated were related to their faith. Faith itself was a kind of wonderful power that could support cultivation techniques. The stronger their faith, the faster their cultivation speed. However, this had a very clear flaw. After becoming a follower, it was very hard to cultivate any other attributed cultivation technique. Each true spirit realm expert had the qualifications to become a priest. Dolores was one of the demonic god's priests. This demonic god's priest had the strength of the peak first true spirit layer, but she could only control summons in the peak ninth awakened soul layer with her demonic techniques. Even if she could summon several of them, it would not be easy for her to fight against experts of the same level. After all, the Fox clan was not strong and they could not cultivate any attributed cultivation techniques. This caused the development of their source spirit to be very low and their battle strength could not compare to experts of the same level. This meant that although the Fox native tribe had a lot of people with high cultivations, their actual combat strength was not that strong. However, not only were the demon god believers summoners, but they were also powerful beast tamers. These demonic god priests' ability to tame magical beasts was unparalleled. In the surrounding forest, other than the hundreds of spirit monkeys, there were also several kinds of high-level magical beasts. There were close to 1,000 of them, and they were all upper-level, 2 magical beasts. It was because of the defenses of the demon beasts that the Fox clan wasn't swallowed by the dangerous Forest of Chaos. Otherwise, how could they have survived until today? Chu Tian was very interested in taming magical beasts. The little fox could directly control a demon beast's mind, but the little fox's control was only temporary. Although it was quick and easy to use, it could be interrupted or dispelled. These fox people were unable to directly tame beasts like the demon race, but they could temporarily subdue the demon beasts. Then, they could use the secret techniques and potions that the demon god religion had developed over the years to gradually brainwash the demon beasts, slowly making them obedient. Although it took a long time and consumed a lot of resources, once the tamed beasts were successfully tamed, they could be used for a long time. Chu Tian preferred the second method in comparison. Miracle Commerce lacked an air force the most right now. Was it easy to train an air force from scratch? If they could solve the mount taming problem, it would save quite a bit of effort. Since they understood the demon god religion's abilities, then they had to consider how to form an alliance. The high priest said, "Green City has already been occupied by the Eternal Forest, but there are still many powers left in Green City. Other than the Green religion, there are also the shaman sorcerers, necromancers, and druids, as well as the shadows of large foreign powers. With just our people, we can't fight against any of them. If we fight against them, it would be no different from sending ourselves to death." Chu Tian knit his brows and said, "I already knew that Green City was complicated, but I never thought it would be this complicated. There were many believers here, and the stubbornness of these believers was incomparable to that of ordinary natives. Moreover, these believers were not weak, and there were also other large forces in the forest interfering. This undoubtedly made the situation even more complicated. I think we need to enter the city to take a look. There are very few humans in Green City, so if you directly enter, you will alert the enemy." The high priest said, "I'll have my clansmen buy supplies and send you in. With our cover, you don't need to worry about your identity being exposed." "This is good. At this time, a fox clansman suddenly charged in and said, "High priest, this is bad, those stupid bulls have come to cause trouble again." The fox clan's high priest's white brows slightly jumped up. "Quickly, prepare for battle." Chu Tian saw the fox clan's anxious appearance and immediately asked, "What happened?" "There has been a famine in the forest recently and the surrounding tribes are lacking in food, always reaching out to us. Do these fellows really think that the demonic god religion is a granary?" The high priest's face was terrifyingly deep. "We need to teach them a lesson." Chu Tian's heart couldn't help slightly skipping a beat. Actually, before coming here, Chu Tian already knew that there was a food shortage around Green City. Logically speaking, these ferocious natives wouldn't lack food. After all, the forest was rich in biological resources, but in reality, a native tribe's activity radius was around 200 kilometers. If a native tribe stayed in one place for a long time and hunted, then as time passed, magical beasts would avoid the native tribe's hunting area, and the natives would find it harder and harder to hunt. These large tribes had over 100,000 people, so it would be a large matter if they didn't have food for a few days. If they didn't have food for a week, it would be a famine. Every time there was a famine, it meant that war would break out. There were many locals around the forest city and their hunting areas overlapped, so there was less and less prey. The large tribes had several 100,000 people, so if these several 100,000 people wanted to eat, where would the food come from? Once there was a famine, they could only steal it. Chu Tian followed the Fox clan into the forest. Several hundred Fox clan members were already guarding this place. There were monkeys squatting in the trees and giant wolves hiding in the forest. The Fox clan members were vigilantly looking in front of them. The other side had around 10 times the number of the Fox clan members, with several thousand people densely packed together. Each one of them was wearing primitive vine armor and they were holding axes or giant hammers in their hands, looking like fiends. Dolores and the priests angrily shouted, "Dirty, stupid minotaurs, do you want to start a war with us?" The minotaurs were 3 meters tall and were 4 times as strong as a human. They had a bull's head on their necks and there seemed to be flames flashing in their eyes. Chu Tian felt this was very interesting. The minotaurs were similar to the barbarians. They were a race that developed their physical strength, therefore they had the potential to become berserkers. If we wanted to start a war, we wouldn't have brought this few people and wouldn't have wasted words with you. A strong minotaur walked out with heavy steps. "We'll borrow some food and return it in 2 months. A Fox clan priest angrily shouted, "We don't even have enough food to eat, how could we have extra to lend to you?" "That's right, quickly scram. Otherwise you won't be able to walk out of this forest." The Minotaurs had never been a race with good tempers, and these foxmen didn't know what was good for them, so they were immediately angered. The leading Minotaur roared, "We've been neighbors for 10 years, are you not going to help us at all? We have several thousand people that are about to starve to death and we're all going to die anyway. If we do something crazy, I hope you won't blame us for not giving you face." This was a blatant threat. The fox people's expressions were not good. Chu Tian asked the high priest beside him, "Are these minotaurs very strong?" The minotaurs are in the western mountain valley and have around 100,000 people. They can be considered a large influence in the area. The high priest said with a sunken expression, "We've been minding our own business these past few years, but now that the minotaurs are suffering from famine, I'm afraid we'll make a big fuss." It was hard to find prey in the forest recently and many tribes were suffering from famine. The Fox clan did not just know how to store food, they also knew how to grow their own food, so they could be self-sufficient in times of famine. How large was the Minotaur's appetite? It was not inferior to the ogre's at all. A single Minotaur's appetite was more than 10 fox people. If the Fox clan supported the Minotaurs, how could the Fox clan survive? Dolores's enchanting face was filled with anger. "Greedy and despicable Minotaurs, we will not submit to your martial strength. If you dare make a move, we'll make it so you won't be able to return." Most likely feeling the killing intent from the fox people. The surrounding monkeys and wolves in the forest all gave low roars. The Minotaur's eyes were red from hunger. They had gone to the surrounding tribes and most tribes were unable to protect themselves, so they were not willing to lend them food. In comparison, the Fox clan was easier to deal with, so since they wouldn't give it to them, they would steal it. The killing intent released by the Minotaurs made the hearts of the Fox clan members sink. A bloody battle was hard to avoid. Although similar things often happened in the forest, with the Fox clan's current population, it would be hard for them to support this kind of bloody battle. If the tribe shrank even further, perhaps they wouldn't even have the qualifications to stand here. Why do we need to fight for a bit of food? Who is it? The Minotaurs looked at Chu Tian with a strange expression. It was rare to see humans in this area, so how could a human appear in the Fox clan's tribe? I am a merchant, so you can think of me as a food merchant. Chu Tian smiled as he looked at the large Minotaurs. His smile had a bit of a treacherous feel to it. I can provide food for the entire tribe to eat, but I just said that I'm a merchant and not a philanthropist. Do you understand what I mean? Chapter 404. The Minotaurs filled with killing intent were suddenly stunned. This was the depths of the Forest of Chaos. It was not the territory of humans, therefore humans were rarely seen. Anyone that could come here was a very powerful person, so who would come to this place to be a food seller? Would they transport food from tens of thousands of miles away? Or would they buy and sell food in the forest? This kind of behavior was like a treasure hunter that had finally found a treasure after a long time, but in the end, they had to move a stone back. This was completely different from cleaning up. The locals all knew how difficult and dangerous it was to pass through the Forest of Chaos. Even the locals that had lived here for generations did not dare try it. Humans did not hesitate to take risks to come here. There were countless heaven and earth treasures, even leather, wood, and ores were all profitable businesses, so why did they need to buy food? The Minotaurs stared with wide eyes as they panted and said, "No matter who it is, playing with the Minotaurs will result in them becoming a meat patty." The Minotaurs had a fierce expression, but Chu Tian ignored it with a calm expression. "One day, no, give me half a day to prepare. Send a large amount of food to the Minotaurs and then we'll discuss the price. How about it?" Although reason told the Minotaurs that this matter was impossible and it was definitely this human doing something, humans were famous for being sly on the continent. But from this human's expression and demeanor, it didn't seem like he was lying. Could he really bring large amounts of food? The Minotaurs had over 100,000 people and the amount of food they needed was enough to feed a human city of over 2 million people. Why do we believe a human? Why don't you believe him? Even if you want to attack the Fox clan, just your several thousand people aren't enough. Why don't you go back and wait for half a day? Half a day. The Minotaurs wouldn't be unable to hold on for half a day and the Fox clan wouldn't be able to run in half a day. Since the human was this confident, why not wait a bit? The Minotaurs didn't want to fight. Unless they couldn't live on anymore. All right, the Minotaurs will believe you this once. If you don't appear before nightfall, the Minotaurs will wash these foxes with blood. Hearing this threat, the fox people all revealed looks of anger. The Minotaurs could not be reasoned with, especially the starving Minotaurs. Although they were angry, they did not want to fight with these fellows. After all, the Minotaurs' battle strength could not be underestimated, and once they went crazy, they were truly terrifying. Chu Tian smiled and nodded. "It's a deal." The Minotaur leader waved his hand. Several thousand Minotaurs left. Dolores' charming face was filled with anxiety. She didn't know why Chu Tian would make such a promise to the Minotaur for no reason. "You have companions nearby?" "No. Do you have any influence nearby?" Chu Tian came here alone. Not to mention helping the entire Minotaur tribe, he didn't even bring a single piece of rations. The Fox clansmen were all anxious. Could it be that Chu Tian had taken the initiative to stall for time? Not only would this not solve the urgent situation, once the Minotaurs found out that they had been tricked, they would explode with 10 times the anger and craziness to trample over the Fox clan with their personalities. The high priest tightly knit his brows. Although he was filled with worry, he could see that this human Chu Tian was not simple. Chu Tian had been appointed as Green City's city lord, so the Fox clan would be an important ally and helper. He had no reason to mess around with this matter, so what was he thinking? Dolores couldn't keep her calm. Then what did you promise the Minotaurs? Don't you know how terrifying the crazy Minotaurs are? Don't be anxious, don't be anxious. Chu Tian's eyes swept over the Fox clan and he calmly said, I'm asking you, do you want to get rich? The moment these brainless words came out, all the Fox clan members were stunned. Dolores stood up and her voluptuous body moved up and down with excitement. What time is it now and you're still saying this? If it wasn't for the Lord Demonic God's sake, Dolores would have already made a move. Dolores, sit down. The high priest had her sit down. Since Sir City Lord is filled with confidence, then he must have a reason. Let's listen to what he has to say for now. Chu Tian said with a nod, I'm not lying, I am indeed a merchant and I can become a food merchant. Merchant? The Fox clan looked at each other in blank dismay. The elves hated human merchants the most because nothing good ever happened when human merchants came into contact with the elves. The most profitable business in this forest was human trafficking, and whether it was the Fox clan or the elves, they were the main prey of these human traffickers. How could this kind of human be given the city lord status by the elven king? Actually, it's not hard to deal with these tribes. Chu Tian said in a meaningful voice, I've also found that it's very easy to get rich here. Dolores asked, how are you prepared to deal with the Minotaurs? They aren't easy to fool. Fool? Sorry, I'm an honest and trustworthy person. Chu Tian didn't want to explain it too clearly. He took out materials from the gourd. Please move aside. Several prepared array flags were placed in the ground. When the array flags were activated, large amounts of runes were released in the center, finally forming a source energy array that caused spatial energy fluctuations. Then Chu Tian placed an energy pillar at the base of the array to provide it with energy. Open! Chu Tian gave a low roar. Although Chu Tian didn't have true spirit level strength, with the prepared array flags, he could still quickly create a spatial array to open the space warehouse. He had already used the communication device to contact the young miss, so when Chu Tian opened the space warehouse, there were over 100,000 cans in the 1,000 cubic meter space. These cans were not traveling cans, but rather storage cans. The former were small cans that adventurers, mercenaries, and adventurers would carry with them, while the latter were large cans that were half a person tall and were used to store food. Over 100,000 large cans, with an average weight of around 50 pounds, poured out of the space warehouse and instantly formed a small mountain in front of the Fox clan. The Fox clansmen were all stunned. No one could understand what Chu Tian had done. It was like he was performing magic, creating all these things out of thin air. This was even more mysterious than their summoning techniques. Chu Tian opened the lid of a large can and threw it in front of the Fox clansmen from several dozen meters away. Take a look for yourselves. Dolores smelled the enticing smell of food. Could it really be food? The Fox clansmen immediately came over in curiosity. This can was filled with cooked meat, with each piece weighing over 10 pounds. It was fat and fresh, releasing an enticing smell as if it was still steaming. It was like it had just come out of the pot. Dolores's eyes were wide open as she looked at the humans with a face filled with shock. Her eyes were not like she was looking at a human, but rather like she was looking at a monster, or perhaps she was looking at a god. She was filled with shock and joy as countless complex emotions gathered in her heart, finally condensing into a single question. How did you do it? That's not the main point. Chu Tian asked with a smile. I'll ask you again, do you want to get rich? Late in the evening, the dark red setting sun covered the entire forest. The Minotaur tribe in the valley was covered in a gloomy atmosphere. Countless Minotaurs weakly dug at the grass and tree roots. These large fellows that even dared to attack ogres were now in a sickly and weak state. Chief, it's almost dark. Of course I know. The Minotaur chief was a fellow that was close to 4 meters tall, with a body that seemed like it was made of black steel. His 2 large nostrils would release a white mist each time he breathed, and his 2 eyes were even larger than bells, with flames of anger dancing in them. There were 2 curved blade-like horns on his head that released a cold light. It seems like that human is playing with us. That's right, the human is on the same side as the Fox clan. We'll kill our way over and peel off the skin of those foxes, chopping up their bones to make soup. We'll let them know the consequences of deceiving the Minotaurs. A few of the Minotaur leaders with fiery tempers were already roaring in anger. Killing the foxes was not important, the most important thing was plundering. They needed food, otherwise in a single night, at least 1,000 of their clansmen would starve to death. If this famine continued for 3-5 days, at least 10,000 of their clansmen would starve to death. At that time, the tribe would have to face the danger of disbanding. The Minotaur chief stood up. Although he did not say a word, he raised his giant axe and his killing intent was enough to explain everything. Those foxes are here. When the Minotaur chief was prepared to lead his clansmen out, a Minotaur's voice suddenly came from outside. This caused the expressions of all the Minotaurs to change. What? Did they really come? In front of the Minotaur Valley, Dolores and Chu Tian were fighting side by side. Around 500 Fox clan youths had arrived. Out of the way, out of the way! The Minotaur chief pushed aside a few people blocking his way. When he was about to loudly ask, his 2 bull eyes suddenly popped out. This was because the Fox clan had brought a large group of giant lizards. Each giant lizard was carrying a large tin can and the Fox clan was busy moving the tin cans down. This is? The Minotaurs had surprised expressions. These tin cans were made from the lathes of Southern Xia's factories. No one in the forest would waste time to make these things to store food. There are 10,000 cans of food here, around 500,000 gene. They are all processed and there are dozens of secret seasonings. It is definitely 100 times more delicious than your crude food. I swear that as long as you eat our company's food, you won't be able to eat anything else in the future. Everyone could clearly hear the Minotaur's breathing become heavier. That's right, I heard that the Minotaurs love strong wine, so I prepared 1,000 barrels of good wine. Each barrel is made from top-grade materials, and even in a human society that pursues a high quality of life, this is considered a pretty good wine. The Minotaur's eyes turned red and their large Adam's apples bobbed a few times, unable to say anything. Chu Tian looked at these Minotaurs. I wonder if everyone is satisfied? The Minotaur chief couldn't help himself. Quickly give it to me. The Minotaurs almost lost their reasoning and were about to steal it. I have to remind you, don't try to steal our food. This is just the first batch and I have plenty of good wine and meat. You can have as much as you want, but if you dare try to steal it, then I'm sorry, I won't do any business with the Minotaurs in the future. Chu Tian then added, I think that at this time, as long as we provide food as a condition, there will be many tribes interested in attacking the Minotaur Valley. The Minotaur chief's expression changed. What do you want? I don't know either. Chu Tian revealed a cunning smile. I'll have to see what you have first. Chapter 405. At night, in the Minotaur Valley, several tens of thousands of Minotaurs were celebrating. The valley was filled with the fragrance of meat and wine. Chu Tian was sitting in the middle of the valley with the Fox clan around a bonfire. Dolores was sitting on the side with her silver-white hair flowing down. Her hands were holding a piece of barbecued meat as she ate it in large bites. You really are something. Dolores was very dissatisfied looking at the Minotaur's happy appearances. It was like these bulls being happy was a bad thing for her, so she complained to Chu Tian beside her, it's fine if you say you sent food, but these stupid bulls can eat anything. They can even digest wolf meat in their stomachs, even the toughest blade grass is not a problem. You just had to send this good food, you're letting these fellows off too easily. After saying this, she fiercely ate a few more bites. The forest natives ate raw meat and their food conditions were far behind. Natives were natives in the end, they couldn't compare to civilized humans. Even in human society, Miracle Commerce's source energy cooking food was the best of the best. Even for an elf who pursued a high quality of life, Vivian fell in love with the source energy food the first time she tasted it. The elves also had very high cooking skills. They could combine demon beast meat and herbs to make delicious food, but the elves' cooking process was as complicated as refining pills. How could they be like Miracle Commerce where a single source energy array could do it? After Meng Yinging invented the canned food, Miracle Commerce built several dozen factories. These canned food factories originally required large amounts of source energy chefs to manually operate them, but now, the source energy array could be used to supply energy from the energy column, so they could be operated without human hands. Although there were no source energy chefs to control the fire, so the taste of the source energy food was not as good, it was only relatively speaking. Chu Tian did not care about the fox girl's complaints at all. This was because he had just brought Dolores with him to slaughter the Minotaurs. Because of the long period of famine, the Minotaur tribe's stockpile of precious herbs and rare materials had already been exchanged for items, but the tribe still had many treasures, especially beast cores, magic crystals, leather, and etc. These were all accumulated by the Minotaur tribe over the years. These things were not worth much here. But as long as it could be sent to southern Xia, it would be of great value. The level 3 magic beast hides were enough to create top-notch leather armors. The magic cores and magic crystals could be used in large quantities in the laboratory. In addition, there were medicinal herbs, metals, and other materials. He did some rough calculations. The canned food was worth 300 low-grade source stones, which was around 300 million gold coins in the southern summer country. This was because most of the ingredients had been bought in the forest over the past month and were mostly level 2 ingredients, so the cost was relatively high. After all, with the Minotaur tribe's strength, level 1 source energy food could not satisfy them. Chu Tian had basically emptied the Minotaur tribe. The total value of these things was around 3,000 low-grade source stones, which was equivalent to 3 billion southern summer crystal coins. Chu Tian basically didn't do anything. Oldman's Small Town and Miracle Commerce were buying demon beast meat at high prices. The kingdom's mercenaries, hunters, and locals were naturally grateful to Miracle Commerce. After all, even the demon beast meat could be sold for a good price, which was a large amount of income for them. The purchased food was sent to the southern Xia factory to be processed before being sold to the famine areas, instantly earning 10 times the profit. Moreover, the locals were also grateful to him. Chu Tian was simply an angel that fell from the sky, saving their tribe from disaster. It was rare to see such a profitable business that could earn gratitude at the same time. Now that the fox girl Dolores had thrown away her prejudice against Chu Tian, she was already a bit impressed by this human. Although Chu Tian did not tell her how to transport the food, Dolores couldn't take the initiative to ask him, so she went to find the little fox. How could the little fox keep this secret? The Fox clan had already treated it like an ancestor and worshipped it in the temple, making this fellow very proud. Dolores only gave it a little benefit and it immediately told Dolores about the space warehouse. This space transport technology could not be compared to a miracle at all. Especially in times of famine for many tribes, Chu Tian could definitely use this method to earn a large amount of money. Dolores did not say another word as she led her tribe to fight Chu Tian. At this time, the Minotaur chief Arnold was already completely drunk. He had never thought that he would be this happy today. That human merchant had not only given the Minotaurs a pleasant surprise, temporarily relieving the famine in their tribe, he had also allowed them to enjoy delicious food that they would never be able to enjoy in their entire lives. The wine was a top-grade wine. The meat was a top-grade meat. Arnold felt a burst of sorrow. He felt like he had lived these past few decades in vain. He didn't even know what it meant to enjoy life. If he knew that the human world was this beautiful, he wouldn't have become a chief and would have left the forest to enjoy himself in a human country. This third true spirit layer Minotaur, whether it was a large or small country, he would have been respected. It was already too late to regret it now. What Arnold was truly surprised about was that the things the human merchant took were things the Minotaurs couldn't use. For example, demon beast essence bones, blood essence, beast cores, demon crystals, and leather. These things couldn't be eaten and weren't worth much in the forest, so the Minotaurs were too lazy to bring them back. He never thought that they could be used to save their tribe at this time. If they knew this earlier, they would have stored more. Arnold suddenly sobered up a bit. That's right. The Minotaurs were not rich to begin with and most of their stores had been traded. Although they had traded for several 100,000 gene of food, how many days could this last for? It was unknown how long this famine would last. If the tribe faced a food crisis, how would they survive it? Arnold's brows drew together without eyebrows. Although the Minotaurs were not smart, it was not hard to foresee this problem. Arnold carefully considered it before finally looking for Chu Tian and saying, "Respected Mr. Chu Tian, you have solved a large problem for the Minotaurs. I thank you on behalf of the Minotaurs." Chu Tian waved his hand in an uncaring manner. "Don't say it like this, I am a merchant. This is a fair trade, you don't owe me anything." Arnold's large black face was a bit awkward. "This? The quality of the food this time is very good. I think it can last the Minotaurs for around 5 days, but after 5 days." Chu Tian pretended not to understand Arnold's words. "Our company has plenty of food. As long as the price is good, we can supply as much as we want." "But..." Arnold released 2 streams of white gas from his nose as he anxiously said, "Our tribe's precious treasures and elixirs have been traded for food in Green City half a month ago. Most of the worthless leather and ores have been used to trade for food. Our tribe can't take out any more. I think we can owe it for now. As long as the tribe can guarantee a month's supply, the Minotaurs can guarantee double the payment in half a year." Chu Tian shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "Chief Arnold should know that I won't be able to earn anything from this business. Think about it, how hard is it to send this large amount of food into the forest? If I didn't want to make friends with the Minotaurs, I wouldn't do this kind of losing business. If the Minotaurs want to owe it, I'm afraid it's a bit unreasonable. The company has to consider costs and risks. I am a merchant, so I'm very sorry." The Minotaurs were anxious hearing this. They did not know how long this famine would last. If this human merchant lost confidence in the Minotaurs, it would be a heavy blow to the Minotaurs. It was as he said, wanting to send this much food into the depths of the forest. Just thinking about it was an incredible matter. Not to mention that the resources Chu Tian had traded for did not have any precious treasures or resources, just some common materials. Such high-quality food was traded for such a low price. Perhaps it was even cheaper than in Green City. It seemed like there really wasn't anything to earn from this. What should he do? Steal it? Arnold did not even know the human merchant's background. Not to mention the human caravans that came here to do business were not simple. Chu Tian had warned the Minotaurs that if they did anything out of line, the humans could use the food to support the surrounding tribes and have them attack the Minotaurs. The Minotaurs would not be able to bear the consequences. "We can consider any conditions. As long as it can help our clansmen pass this crisis, you can raise any conditions." "Really?" Arnold sincerely nodded. Chu Tian also nodded in satisfaction. "Actually, I have a special identity, but it's not the right time to tell you. However, you should understand that you won't suffer a loss if you follow me." The Minotaurs knit their brows without eyebrows again. What did he mean? Could it be he wanted the Minotaurs to be loyal to him? This was also impossible. He was only a human and the Minotaurs would not bow down to him for food. "Chief Arnold, I'll allow the Minotaurs to owe it to you." Chu Tian said this and then suddenly squatted down. "As for the other part, we can hire you to pay for it." "Hire? I'm not a local after all, so doing things here is a hindrance. If I have the help of the Minotaurs, there will be much less resistance when I start my business." Chu Tian said this and pointed at the large cans of food on the side. "Each Minotaur will get 2 cans of food a day. What do you think?" There were several dozen jeans of food in a single can, enough for a Minotaur to eat for several days. 1 Minotaur would get 2 cans of food. This was not low in a time of famine. A single Minotaur could feed his entire family. Only Arnold was still worried. He did not know the background of this human, and if he led the Minotaurs to their deaths, he would not be able to explain it to his clansmen. "You don't need to worry." Chu Tian then added, "If the Minotaurs are heavily injured during the hiring, we will be responsible for healing them and giving them 10 cans of food so they can peacefully recover. If the Minotaurs die during the hiring, Miracle Commerce will give them 100 cans of food." The Minotaur's breathing became heavy. This was a temptation that was hard to resist. Chief Arnold thought about it for a long time before saying in a probing voice, "The Minotaurs are the bravest warriors in the forest. We need at least 4 cans of food a day." Chu Tian thought about it and did not bargain, so he agreed. 5 cans of food would give them several hundred pounds of meat. Buying a random bull's corpse would give them close to a ton of meat, so what did this bit of food count for? Miracle Commerce did not lack resources, but what they lacked the most was allies, especially allies in Green City. Using food to maintain allies was a pretty good method. No problem. Other than the Fox clan, Chu Tian had obtained the support of another tribe. These minotaurs would not only support Chu Tian could even hire minotaurs to charge into battle. Therefore, as long as there was a need, Chu Tian could hire several thousand minotaurs to fight for him. With the help of this power and the Fox clan, Chu Tian was much more confident. But this was not enough. Chu Tian had not fully displayed his advantages. He still needed to win over the support of the locals. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.